he awakens just one single mana core. Yet, this unbelievable feat completely paralyzes his royal uncle right on the spot. To the world, he is nothing but a pathetic prince. However, a shocking secret remains hidden. The royal standing before them is not the real prince. A legendary sword has entirely possessed his physical vessel. This epic tale actually begins several centuries in the past. Back then, a divine sword existed, relentlessly coveted and hunted by countless ambitious warriors. Through endless decades, the weapon witnessed devastating wars and the tragic fall of legends. Finally, it encountered its true master, a nameless village boy called Leon Burke. Together, they conquered the vast world, dominated bloody battlefields, and achieved glorious, unmatched miracles. Ultimately, they utterly decimated the massive white dragon ruling over Frost Mountain. Through these legendary achievements, Leon Burke claimed the royal throne. Yet, human glory always fades. The great king eventually succumbed to illness and old age, slowly fading from this mortal world. Before passing, he grasped his lifelong weapon partner one last time. With his final breath, he pleaded for it to protect his bloodline. That was the legendary history of when I remained a sword, explaining my current existence. But why is there such an annoying commotion outside today? Has another arrogant fool blindly arrived, hoping to claim my ultimate power? That is completely impossible. I serve only one king. Suddenly, an arrogant voice shouts, "Starting today, I own this blade." The terrified royal guards instantly panic, desperately warning the eldest Prince Adrian that only the sovereign may touch this sacred relic. Gruhan, the sword, trembles in utter disbelief. Are they seriously claiming this pathetic, pig-like trash is my master's heir? Leon was an absolute legend. How did his noble bloodline devolve into such disgusting filth? I must closely inspect this fool. Furious, the sword instantly activates his divine judgment skill. Immediately, Prince Adrian's tragic status window flashes before the protagonist's vision. Unbelievably, this pathetic weakling truly carries my comrade's bloodline. Yet, my mind remains completely baffled by this reality. How could a peerless sword saint ever produce such a sickeningly weak, repulsive heir like this? This weakling cannot even lift a dagger. Suddenly, the arrogant Prince Adrian shatters the silence. Desperate to escape the kingdom's relentless mockery and his father's disdain, he screams, "Please grant me your legendary power, great dragon-slaying sword Gruhan." The protagonist finds this demand absolutely hilarious. Bestow my divine power upon this pig? I would have to be insane. Panicking, the royal guards beg him, "Please do not draw the blade here. If His Majesty discovers this, we are all dead. Do you peasants wish for death? How dare you command me? Or do you fear I will actually master Gruhan's might?" The protagonist laughs at the boy's massive delusion. Deep within his metallic core, he sneers, "Just give it up, kid. Garbage like you could never handle my aura." Suddenly, Adrian viciously trips forward. In a flash, the protagonist's sharp blade accidentally pierces the prince's chest. This horrifying bloody spectacle immediately scares every single guard and maid completely senseless. However, the most absolutely bewildered soul is the protagonist himself. That foolish brat is the one bleeding out. So why is my own immense spiritual consciousness suddenly fading into total blackness? After centuries of being an invincible weapon, am I actually passing out? Before finishing that very thought, the legendary protagonist plunges into total darkness. Adrian stands as the kingdom's primary heir to the throne. Yet, absolutely nobody supports his royal succession. He possesses zero martial talent from his legendary family bloodline, while his toxic arrogance remains completely unrivaled throughout the entire realm. Incompetent, utterly greedy, and hopelessly lazy, his pathetic existence hangs like a suffocating storm cloud over their future. However, after miraculously surviving that fatal stab wound and cheating death, shocking new rumors rapidly begin sweeping through the royal castle. The useless prince has fundamentally changed. His violent temper tantrums completely vanish. Whispers claim touching death's door has forcefully awakened his dormant potential. Skeptics argue that human nature never truly shifts, believing it is only a matter of time before his disgusting true colors bleed through again. Naturally, these treacherous whispers echo into Adrian's ears, but he ignores them entirely, facing a much more horrifying reality. I actually slaughtered my comrade's pathetic descendant and completely hijacked his physical body. Several tense days quickly vanish. As early dawn breaks, a trembling maid hurriedly announces that the mighty king is currently approaching his chambers. The protagonist finds this utterly impossible. Considering the king completely ignored this brat while he was bleeding out, his cold father never spared a single glance. Yet, before he finishes his thought, an intimidating figure materializes right behind the servant. How disappointing. Even after scraping past death's dark gates, your disgusting attitude remains as vile as ever. Hearing those chilling words, the protagonist instantly freezes. Who is this imposing old man? Are you seriously pretending you do not recognize your master? What? Are you completely abandoning our sacred master and disciple bond? Realization strikes this terrifying elder is the pig's instructor. Trapped, the protagonist frantically tries smoothing over this deadly situation. My brain currently feels like absolute mush. You look incredibly familiar, but your identity escapes me. The man never expected this response and prepared to press further. Suddenly, a servant announced the king's grand arrival. The main character's interest immediately sparked. This pig's father was likely just as awful. However, in the very next heartbeat, a towering, powerfully built man materialized before his eyes. I assumed time eroded the proud lion's bloodline into mere dogs. But this king actually looks formidable. He truly carries a trace of my old comrade's majestic aura. The king's expression instantly darkened with wrath. You refuse to even greet your father? It seems staring death in the face could not change your attitude. The former host's master frantically intervened. I just discovered His Highness suffers from severe memory loss. I strongly advise letting the royal physician examine him. Shortly after, the royal doctor rushed in. But despite his thorough inspection, he found absolutely nothing physically wrong. I suspect this severe amnesia is a temporary symptom triggered by extreme psychological trauma. Hearing this diagnosis, the king's glare grew ice cold. Do you honestly believe feigning ignorance will magically erase your past sins? I actually believed you could still be saved. Everyone makes mistakes. Owning up to failures and changing your path counts as true growth. But now you claim amnesia, desperately trying to wipe away your entire pathetic history. The monarch erupted into blistering fury, forcing the master to quickly step forward to diffuse the tension. His Highness might genuinely remember absolutely nothing. Gesturing for the guards to watch Adrian, the master quickly escorted the seething king away. The main character could not fathom what horrific crimes the original owner committed to trigger such universal hatred. This open hostility was completely unfitting for a royal prince. They were practically treating him like a piece of absolute garbage. Before he could process the situation, the frantic queen burst inside and crushed him in a hug, promising his memories would return. Even if they never come back, it does not matter. Your painful past is completely meaningless now. Forgetting everything is perfectly fine. My poor sweet boy, your beautiful face looks terribly exhausted. The main character was left utterly baffled. Where exactly did she see a handsome face, and where did she see exhaustion? Please never touch such dangerous weapons again. I was terrified you would never wake up. The main character's scalp went totally numb hearing this. How could a descendant of the legendary Sword Saint's bloodline be forbidden from touching a blade? Besides, her precious child had already died completely. In a flash, night fell. After surviving the queen's suffocating affection all day, his face looked completely drained of life. Just then, the queen promised she would absolutely return to see him tomorrow. The main character went entirely rigid, screaming internally, "Please do not come back. Things are incredibly awkward already. My sworn brother trusted me to protect his bloodline, yet I personally killed one of his own descendants. It was never my intention, but fate has spoken. The only option left is to live brilliantly for us both. But how do I start? In my past life, I was merely a weapon. I spent my existence marching into battles and slaughtering enemies. The only art I possess is absolute swordsmanship. Yet this pathetic new body is built like a pig with zero talent. But that is not the worst tragedy. I must awaken my legendary power once more." With burning resolve, the main character decided to forge a magic core. Inhaling deeply, a torrential flood of pure mana violently surged into his body. But a split second later, a chilling dread gripped his soul. The moment the magical energy entered, it evaporated into total nothingness. Was this mortal shell too weak to contain it? I will suppress the intensity and try again. However, despite repeating the technique, the vital mana continuously vanished into nothingness upon entering. This mortal vessel was shockingly frail. If only he could use his legendary original body. I cannot tolerate this pathetic weakness for another second. Suddenly, the timid voice of a servant girl echoed from outside the heavy door. "This is the vital restorative elixir Her Majesty the Queen ordered me to deliver. Though incredibly bitter, it contains miraculous properties for your recovery. Please accept Her Majesty, the Queen's deep, unwavering maternal concern." After speaking, the terrified maid stared at the main character, violently trembling with fear. She panicked inwardly, terrified the prince would violently shatter the bowl like always. But in the next second, she saw the main character frozen completely solid in stunned silence. His sharp senses immediately flared. He actually felt raw magical power inside the medicine. Without hesitating, the main character snatched the heavy cup. He tilted his head and savagely gulped the entire brew. In the absolute blink of an eye, he drained the medicinal bowl without spilling a single drop. The maid stood entirely paralyzed in shock. This vicious prince really has changed. Wiping his mouth, the main character locked eyes and calmly commanded, "You may leave now." The instant the maid vanished, the main character attempted the cultivation technique once more. To his absolute shock, He actually succeeded this time. However, the flickering magical aura remained frustratingly weak, and this fragile body could barely sustain it. With this realization, the main character tracked down the maid who had just brought his medicine. "From now on, bring me more of this exact brew," he commanded. A few short days flew by. Today, the main character was finally ready to forge his very own magic core. He had taught this process to countless heroes. Even with his eyes completely shut, nothing could possibly go wrong. But a split second later, explosive agony tore through his body like a blazing inferno. In a single breath, a flood of memories crashed into his mind. These flashes showed every time he had guided others in forging their magic cores. The brutal truth finally hit him. Forging a magic core was an absolute nightmare of pain. Even worse, the more agonizing it became, the harder he had to fight to stay awake. If he passed out right now, the rampant mana would violently reverse its flow. He would be completely crippled, never able to wield magic again. Gritting his teeth, he pushed his focus to the absolute breaking point. Bit by agonizing bit, he wrestled the violent rampaging mana under his complete control. Under his masterful guidance, the energy flowed steadily along his mana pathways, finally fusing perfectly into his core. In a flash, his new magic core was fully forged. An overwhelming wave of triumph instantly flooded his mind. Now that I think about it, this is the first time I have ever owned my very own magic core. Suddenly, a glowing status screen materialized before him. He froze in utter shock. Was this not the divine authority he wielded back when he was a legendary sword? How could this power still manifest? A heartbeat later, the glowing blue panel displayed, "Restoring connection." Right below it, a second line appeared. "Connection restored, but system state is extremely unstable. Most permissions remain locked. Third eye authority is available at a severely limited capacity. Visual perception will be slightly enhanced. Third ear authority is available at a severely limited capacity. Auditory perception will be slightly enhanced." He never expected that, even in a human body, he could still tap into his ancient system authorities. Testing this theory, he locked his gaze onto the massive tree outside his window. Instantly, his vision zoomed in, magnifying every single leaf with crystal clarity. His hearing expanded just as wildly. Even the faintest whispers outside his heavy door became crystal clear, an impossible feat for an ordinary human. It truly felt like the absolute senses he possessed as a divine weapon had awakened inside this mortal shell. But a split second later, a glaring red warning flashed. Mana exhausted. The divine authorities were brutally and forcibly shut down. A crushing wave of vertigo instantly slammed into his brain. The harsh truth hit him: those godlike senses were not fully restored yet. Right now, I can only squeeze out a pathetic drop of mana. It is merely enough to let me see slightly better or quietly eavesdrop on the faint murmurs echoing right outside my door. But as long as I can forcefully expand my mana reserves, this pathetic situation will change entirely. The absolute senses I wielded as a legendary blade will definitely return to me. Suddenly, an embarrassingly loud growl erupted from his empty stomach. Why do fragile humans even need to eat? A short while later, the elegant queen stepped into his grand bedroom once again. The moment he spotted her, his face drained of all life. Great, another day of pure torture, he groaned inwardly. Surprisingly, the queen only ruffled his hair gently before taking a quiet seat nearby. An imposing man then stepped right up to him, and the queen softly asked if her son recognized this towering stranger. The main character simply shook his head, showing absolutely zero recognition. Seeing this blank stare, the royal uncle concluded that his nephew's memories were truly wiped clean. Otherwise, the boy would never stand so calmly and fearlessly in his terrifying presence. "I summoned you today because I need you to help this child, brother," she pleaded softly. After all, regardless of his past failures, he is still your one and only nephew. But the royal uncle coldly scoffed, claiming there was no point in fixing the boy since his past reputation was already absolute garbage. "Fine. If you desperately want my help, the absolute most I will do is run him through basic training. I refuse to do anything beyond that, so drop your foolish expectations right now." The queen nodded gracefully. "That is more than enough for us. Our royal deal is officially sealed." The main character was utterly bewildered. What secret deal? What were they even discussing? Weren't these two supposed to be siblings? Before his brilliant mind could decode the situation, the towering uncle was already looming right over him. A heartbeat later, he was ruthlessly tossed straight onto the dusty training grounds. "You do not seriously think I will pamper you like royalty, do you? From this moment on, what you eat, what you drink, and even the very air you breathe will require my explicit permission. If your miserable efforts actually impress me, I might toss you a few basic scraps of our legendary family swordsmanship. But if you dare to slack off..." The main character could only sneer at the sheer absurdity. These arrogant mortals actually dared to threaten him? He was the ancient mentor who had personally trained their founding king. But reality stung. He knew he was no longer that invincible, legendary blade. Suppressing his pride, he locked down his aura and flashed a fearless smirk. Uncle, do you dare make a wager with me? Give me just half a year to earn your recognition. If I fail, my life is in your hands, and you can dispose of me however you please. But when I succeed, you must grant my one desire. The imperial uncle smirks. Since losing his memory, this arrogant brat has actually become surprisingly entertaining. Since I could use a little amusement these days, I accept your wager. Thus, the main character's brutal training officially kicks off. His declaration is fiercely confident, but his current pig-like physique is an absolute disaster. Instantly, he channels every ounce of magic power flowing through his veins, determined to sprint and burn away this heavy layer of excess fat. The imperial uncle freezes in pure shock. He never expects this supposedly useless, trash-tier prince to actually possess the ability to wield magic power. He immediately orders the prince to halt. You actually formed a heart of magic? The prince grins with absolute arrogance. You mean this little thing? I accidentally forged it. What, are you already regretting our little wager? What absolute nonsense are you spewing right now? Do you genuinely not realize your catastrophic mistake? Where the hell did you learn to forge a heart of magic? Don't you realize that is a pathetic, low-level technique used by bottom-tier mercenaries? Panic flickers in the prince's eyes as he desperately presses the imperial uncle to explain his dark words. Suddenly, a blazing chain of magic materializes in the uncle's grasp. Without another word, he raises his hand and ruthlessly blasts the destructive energy straight at the prince. The prince's carefully gathered magic power shatters instantly, completely dissipating into thin air. The prince stands absolutely paralyzed in disbelief. Do you finally understand your foolishness? The chain of magic naturally dominates the heart of magic. It shatters it effortlessly, all while being far easier to weave and infinitely more stable. Even the stubborn Eli family, who strictly used the heart of magic, fell completely 100 years ago. The prince freezes. Has the heart of magic's era already ended? Desperate for answers, he frantically tears through historical records, ultimately arriving at one devastating conclusion. The world has evolved. Today, mages construct complex magic circles, while elite knights weave powerful chains of magic to harness their explosive aura. A knight's strict rank is now directly measured by their total number of magic chains. Single, double, triple, quadruple, up to the legendary 5-chain pinnacle. However, what truly catches the prince's eye is a mysterious name in the ancient texts, Arl Tringen. An eerie familiarity washes over him. He is absolutely certain he has heard that exact name somewhere before. If his blurry memory serves right, that man was a bizarre anomaly, a warrior who used neither swordsmanship nor magic. Unfortunately, he cannot recall what ultimately happened to that mysterious figure. Soon, the very next day dawns. Bright and early, the determined prince steps onto the dusty training grounds. The imperial uncle arrives simultaneously, piercing him with a sharp glare. Did you search the library last night? If so, you must understand exactly what era we live in now. Do you still think your choice wasn't foolish? But the prince merely smirks. I don't think I am wrong at all. It is perfectly normal for trash to live in denial, considering you were never worth anything to begin with. Right as the uncle finishes mocking him, he witnesses the prince slowly condensing pure magic in his palm. You probably haven't heard this hidden truth. Not all hearts of magic are created equal. They possess distinct ranks. The uncle scoffs. Your useless arguments won't change the cruel reality. Delusional fools exactly like you have frequently popped up among those filthy mercenaries. They brainwash themselves, believing a heart of magic will make them legendary heroes from centuries past. But do you know their dark fate? They all died completely. Countless warriors waste their entire lives without ever breaking through to 2 chains. And you claim you are different? Fine. Go crush a 2-chain knight. Achieve that impossible feat. And just as your mother wished, I shall act as your guardian. Hearing this, the prince actually bursts into laughter instead. I never desperately wanted you to be my guardian anyway. Besides, do you even have the real qualifications? Hearing this, the imperial uncle's expression instantly turns incredibly dark. Are you genuinely questioning my absolute qualifications? I am a count of this kingdom, the supreme commander of the Northern Army, grand commander of the Black Spear Cavalry, and one of the elite 5 silver lions serving his majesty directly. I have woven a formidable 4-chain of magic. The second his words fall, the very earth beneath their feet begins to tremble violently. My name is Val of House Balakard. Now tell me, am I finally qualified enough to be your guardian? The prince completely freezes. He never expects his one casual, arrogant remark to instantly trigger such an explosive reaction from this monster. Those glorious titles sound absolutely terrifying, but can he turn off the aura already? If this crushing pressure continues, this pig-like body will literally shatter. Suddenly, the royal guards spring into motion. They draw their gleaming steel, pointing their blades straight at the imperial uncle while barking a stern warning. Stand down. Val ignores them entirely. You still haven't answered me. Am I finally qualified now? And just like that, the prince's hellish training officially commences. When the brutal session finally ends, he lacks even the basic strength to walk. He has a terrifying premonition. If this nightmarish training lasts any longer, his fragile life will be permanently buried right there in the dirt. This vessel is only 15 years old. Can I report him for child abuse? Probably not. Soon, the protagonist returns to his room. Inside, the royal physician is already waiting for his arrival. Confused, the protagonist asks why he is here. The physician bows deeply. Her Majesty, the Queen sent me. She was terrified that your intense training might leave you feeling unwell. She ordered me to heal you. Let us begin the treatment immediately, Your Highness. Hearing this, the protagonist's eyes snap open with sharp alert. If you heal me now, wouldn't all my agonizing suffering today be completely worthless? Without a second thought, he brutally kicks the royal physician out the door. The nearby guard realizes the eldest prince has truly changed. His absolute ruthlessness on the training ground shows a gritty toughness he never possessed before. Suddenly, the protagonist's stomach violently growls. Time to eat first. A trembling maid quickly carries a lavish meal into his room. Right then, an arrogant figure forcefully kicks the door open without any hesitation. The protagonist glares at this utterly mannerless intruder. Daring to ruin his precious meal is an absolute death sentence in his eyes. Who is this arrogant punk? A sweating guard quietly whispers the answer. This is the fearsome third prince. I heard something bad happened, so I came to gloat, but it seems you are not in trouble. The protagonist glares coldly. Spit out what you came to say. If you just came to pick a fight, go do something actually useful instead. The third prince freezes. He never expected this pathetic idiot, who literally stabbed himself yesterday, to actually dare talk back with such intense venom. Trembling with blazing fury, he forcefully swallows his rage to declare his true purpose. I came because I heard you made a bet with Count Ballard to duel a two-chain knight. So, I demand to be your opponent. Dropping that massive bombshell, he dramatically turns and vanishes. The protagonist has zero clue what this psycho is scheming. Why does every single descendant of the Lindbergh bloodline seem more utterly insane than the last? Whether it is the original owner of this trash body or that arrogant prince, he desperately wants to beat them both into the dirt. The terrified guard begs the protagonist not to accept his Third Highness's suicidal challenge under any circumstances. Confused, the protagonist demands to know why. The guard trembles, explaining that despite being only 14 years old, the prince possesses monstrous sword talent and is already a vicious two-chain knight. Right then, a struggling maid enters carrying a massive mountain of letters. She timidly whispers that every single envelope is addressed directly to the protagonist. The protagonist narrows his eyes in deep suspicion. These nobles treated the original owner like invisible garbage before, so why are they swarming him now? Muttering under his breath, the protagonist violently rips open the seals and reads. But after scanning a few, his blood runs cold. Without a single exception, every single letter is a formal declaration for a fencing duel. They are clearly using this as a legal loophole to beat him half to death. Does he truly look like such an easy target? A dark smirk crawls across his face as he glances at the maid. Make absolute sure you write down every single sender's name for me. Dawn breaks the very next day. The second he steps onto the brutal training ground, the imperial uncle hurls a heavy wooden sword at his feet. Now, I will teach you the art of the blade. When you inevitably lose, I refuse to hear pathetic excuses about never learning swordsmanship. The protagonist curses internally. This old monster's temper is completely unhinged. If he plans to teach, couldn't he hand the weapon over like a normal person? He crouches down, reaching for the battered wooden blade in the dirt. But the exact second his fingers wrap around the hilt, his muscles violently convulse. Soul-tearing agony absolutely explodes through his entire battered nervous system. Even the imperial uncle freezes in pure shock. You refuse the healing magic after yesterday's hellish training? The protagonist aggressively nods. Healing magic just resets my torn muscles to their original pathetic state. If I took the easy way out, yesterday's absolute hell would have meant nothing. The imperial uncle is stunned by this kid's demonic willpower. Instantly, his harsh evaluation of this supposedly trash prince skyrockets to an entirely new level. Yet, his voice remains icy cold. As you wish, burn this into your memory. This is the absolute foundation that every kingdom knight must master. I will not show you twice. Gripping his weapon, the mighty veteran unleashes the fundamental sword techniques right before the protagonist's wide eyes. But despite being nothing more than basic beginner movements, in this monster's seasoned hands, the wooden blade actually shatters the air with a deafening howl. The protagonist is absolutely paralyzed by the raw power. As the dust settles, he forces himself to ask, is this devastating strike really just a basic form now? Assuming the brat is whining about the difficulty, the imperial uncle clicks his tongue in deep annoyance. Because it is basic, I haven't bothered using it in decades. It is the most faithful and mind-numbingly easy technique to master. But with your garbage talent, even this might be impossible. But instead of despairing, the protagonist is struck completely speechless. A shiver runs down his spine. Who could have ever guessed that the legendary dragon-slaying art of the founding emperor is now considered a mere basic strike? Is this really just ordinary training? I might not read much, but do not fool me. Right then, the imperial uncle scoffs. Even mastering this will not win you that bet. Once you grasp the absolute basics, make your mother hire you a new master. But the main character declares he will absolutely never study another sword art again. Perfecting this single art is enough. Hearing this, the imperial uncle senses that this kid has truly transformed. Although, his fierce words would sound vastly more convincing if his sword grip is not shaking so violently right now. Moments later, the main character's grueling sword training officially begins. The legendary dragon-slaying form is shockingly reduced to mere basic drills. He refuses to admit it, but perhaps this tragic shift is just the changing times. They hold the legendary dragon-slaying blade in their grasp, yet they have completely lost the burning courage to slaughter real dragons. Those who forsake the ancient heart of magic will never grasp this legendary stance's true devastating power. Fueled by this thought, the main character's brutal swings grow increasingly frantic and wild. But a split second later, the imperial uncle casually deflects his heavy steel blade. Your strikes are painfully clumsy. Have you completely forgotten the flawless technique I just demonstrated? Relax your rigid muscles and violently channel explosive power from your deep core. Use your legs. You must properly transfer raw energy through your entire frame before swinging perfectly. As his uncle's harsh critique echoes, the main character stands tall, absolute unyielding determination blazing across his sweat-drenched face. Even if my current body is just a fragile shell, awkwardly mimicking this supreme dragon-slaying art, I swear I will make them all understand. This mythical dragon-slaying stance is absolutely not some worthless garbage to be discarded. The hellish training continues day after day. Soon an entire week flashes by. Today, a glowing system window suddenly erupts before him. The main character successfully transforms his severely massive frame into standard bulk. Through relentless high-intensity torture, he finally adapts to this mortal vessel. The clumsy trait vanishes entirely. The dramatic results of all subsequent training will now increase exponentially. Before long, another month passes. Suddenly, a glowing system prompt alerts him. His crippling magic perception disorder is completely eradicated. The legendary magic perception trait officially unlocks. The main character instantly feels his heavy body become weightless. His sword strikes flow naturally, surging with raw power that feels vastly stronger and incredibly stable. Pure joy floods the main character. But a heartbeat later, the wooden sword in his grip violently shatters with a deafening crack. Without him even noticing, the imperial uncle materializes right behind him, obliterating his wooden blade with one flawless strike. The formidable older man silently gestures for him to look forward. Ahead of them, the heavy wooden training dummy has been completely annihilated by lightning. Tiny crackling arcs of raw electricity still fiercely dance across the charred ruins. Have you lost your absolute mind? You dare train during a thunderstorm? If you were wielding actual steel, you would be a charred corpse by now. But the main character cannot hear a single furious word the imperial uncle is shouting. An instant later, his entire vision plunges into total darkness and he violently collapses. Right then, a glowing system prompt abruptly illuminates the black void. The intense hyperfocus state vanishes. The rare high concentration trait is successfully generated, though its current incredible power remains severely restricted for now. Shortly after, the unconscious main character finally awakens. He honestly never expected his brutal sword training to literally push him into total, devastating blackout. This pathetic body's foundation is dangerously weak. Back when I was a legendary sentient blade, I personally guided countless heroes to glorious, blood-soaked victories. I even helped forge this very kingdom's ancient foundation. Yet to ignorant outsiders, I remained a mere tool. Due to that tragic isolation, I became utterly addicted to that hyper-focused state, the euphoric rush of gathering blood, sweat, and absolute power into my own hands. But if I recklessly continue, this fragile shell will completely shatter. Over an agonizing month has passed since my heart of magic fully formed. I have finally stockpiled a massive reserve of surging mana. Is it not finally time to forcefully balance my body and soul, pushing my magic heart into its next legendary evolution stage? Fueled by this, the main character shuts his eyes, entering deep spiritual meditation. Instantly, a brilliant system screen alerts him. Mana reserves have reached critical mass. Your physical vessel can now withstand devastating magical energy. The ancient heart of magic massively expands. Following the explosive evolution of your magical core, your very cellular structure forcibly undergoes a terrifying, miraculous mutation. As the system screen fades, the main character instantly feels the explosive mana within his veins grow incredibly thick and flawlessly pure. He conquered that deadly bottleneck so effortlessly. Brimming with confidence, he snatches up the heavy iron sword resting nearby. The exact second he grips the hilt, a fierce spiritual aura engulfs the cold steel. The main character's eyes blaze brightly. With this overwhelming power, basic sword arts are a total joke. Moments later, he proudly marches into the training grounds, desperate to test his awakened abilities. However, the Imperial uncle blocks his path with a deeply disappointed sigh. The main character is left utterly baffled. You sigh when my form is trash. Fine. But I have not even swung my blade. So, why exactly are you groaning? The Imperial uncle sighs. The kingdom is buzzing with rumors about your bet. Your odds of winning have already plummeted to 10,000 to 1. Find an opponent and end this farce. But the main character simply smirks. He has already chosen his prey. Fighting a two-chain knight head-on is still risky right now, he explains. So, I will crush a few one-chain opponents first. Is that acceptable? The Imperial uncle scoffs, his reply razor-sharp. Do as you please. Hearing this, the prince turns to his loyal guard. Carl. Is the list ready? Carl gives a firm nod. It is prepared as requested. These are the challengers seeking a duel. He pauses. Your Highness plans to disguise these as practice matches, correct? But tread carefully. These men harbor deep-seated resentment toward your Highness. I fear they will strike to kill. The prince just flashes a knowing smile. Relax, Carl. I already have a plan. He pivots back to the Imperial uncle. You heard him, uncle? In that case, will you do me the honor of acting as referee? It is hardly an outrageous request. You will back me up on this, right? A few days pass in a flash. The day of the first duel arrives. Stepping into the arena is Tyler of House Tillum. Standing outside the royal palace, Tyler glares with unbridled hostility. This is my only chance to legally brutalize that arrogant bastard. This time, I will wash away the humiliation that worthless eldest prince inflicted upon my family. Moments later, Tyler storms onto the training ground, his aura blazing. My respects to your Highness, the eldest prince. I am Tyler, second son of House Tillum. I am a one-chain apprentice knight, ready to demonstrate my family's supreme swordsmanship. The prince rolls his eyes inwardly. It is just a spar. Is there really a need to be so painfully dramatic? He leans toward Carl and whispers mockingly, Is this guy actually a knight? He looks completely pathetic. Tyler catches the insult. Instant fury explodes within him, mirroring his humiliation from years past. This prince is still an arrogant fool. Suddenly, the Imperial uncle steps forward, raising a hand for Tyler to lower his blade. I understand your rage, but the battle has not begun. Tyler freezes. Seeing his lifelong idol in the flesh, his face flushes bright red. He bows deeply. Meeting you is the greatest honor of my entire life. The prince frowns deeply. He never looked that thrilled when greeting me. If outsiders saw this, they would think you were the prince, uncle. The older man deadpans. That is because you acted like absolute trash before. With a swift gesture, he orders them to their starting positions. The air in the arena instantly thickens with killing intent. Begin! At the uncle's command, raw magical power erupts violently from Tyler's core. Gripping his blade, he charges at the prince like a raging bull. Closing the distance, Tyler launches into the air, bringing his sword down in a devastating slash. Unfazed, the prince condenses his mana and casually parries the thunderous strike. Tyler freezes in absolute shock. The prince has not condensed a chain of magic, but a literal heart of magic. Impossible. How can a magic heart block a magic chain? The prince smirks ruthlessly. Maybe it is simply because you are too weak. The moment those words drop, a ferocious spiritual aura wraps around the prince's sword. The steel lets out a menacing, low-pitched hum. The spectating guards gasp, their faces turning pale. The eldest prince is actually using sword resonance, a skill exclusive to veteran knights. Tyler is visibly shaken to his core. How can this worthless prince use sword resonance when I cannot even grasp it? Screaming that this is impossible, he frantically unleashes a relentless barrage of attacks. But no matter his ferocity, the prince effortlessly deflects every single blow. With each passing second, Tyler's anxiety spirals dangerously close to total madness. However, beneath his calm facade, the prince is also struggling. His internal mana teeters on the edge of a dangerous backlash. Staring piercingly at Tyler, he speaks. You are the second son of House Tillum, right? Can you calm down for a single second? Just catch your breath. Ignoring him, the prince closes his eyes, sinking deep into his soul. Behind him, the terrifying phantom of a giant dragon slowly materializes. As he touches that shadow, a system window flashes. The dormant dragon-slaying will is awakening. The Dragon Slayer heart is activated. Its boundless energy has successfully fused with the dragon-slaying sword. The dormant dragon-slaying will has fully awakened. Instantly, a soul-crushing pressure suffocates the entire training ground. Tyler trembles in pure confusion. The prince merely blinked, yet his entire aura has undergone a monstrous evolution. This no longer feels like fighting a human. This is not a duel anymore. It is like tossing a helpless lamb straight into the jaws of an apex predator. Even the Imperial uncle is completely baffled. Why has the protagonist's aura suddenly shifted into something so dangerously sinister? There is no way Tyler can block this devastating strike. Suddenly, the Imperial uncle remembers the protagonist's earlier warning. Without hesitating, the Imperial uncle explodes into motion, blurring instantly to intercept the protagonist's deadly path. With a single, earth-shattering blow, he sends the protagonist flying backward. But in the next heartbeat, royal guards press their gleaming blades directly against the uncle's throat. "Stand down, Count Balicard. Do you realize your actions?" they shout. "By royal decree, this is high treason and regicide." At that very moment, the protagonist regains his senses. Coughing violently, he raises a heavy hand, ordering the royal guards to stand down. "Back off," he groans through gritted teeth. "I ordered him to stop me." Before he can utter another word, the protagonist collapses into darkness once more. Sometime later, his heavy eyelids finally flutter open. Panic grips him as he immediately checks his mana core. Finding it intact, he exhales a massive sigh of relief. He genuinely thought that monstrous strike had shattered his magic heart. The Imperial uncle's sheer power is absolutely terrifying. Fortunately, this brutal ordeal is finally over. Just then, the uncle strides into the room. Fixing the protagonist with a piercing glare, he demands to know what exactly just happened out there. "Why did such a demonic aura erupt from your body?" he questions sharply. "And that terrifying sword technique. I never taught you anything like that." Unfazed, the protagonist calmly explains that he was simply embracing the absolute, raw essence of the sword. The Imperial uncle coldly sneers. "Drop the arrogant act. You have never even seen a real battlefield. What right do you have to preach about the sword's essence? Your entire body was drenched in pure bloodlust. Do you foolishly believe that mindless killing intent is the blade's true essence?" He lets out an exhausted sigh. Yet, despite his harsh tone, his words perfectly hit the brutal reality. The protagonist's eyes widen in genuine surprise. "Well, that is truly unexpected," he admits. "I fully expected a boring lecture about how a sword is just a sword. I thought you would preach at me for hours." Amused by this cheeky remark, the veteran cracks a rare smile, reminding the boy that he is a ruthless soldier, not a noble knight. "I walk the blood-soaked path of victory, not some righteous knight's journey. But your blade is still far too extreme. The killing intent is overwhelming. Soon, you will not distinguish friend from foe." The protagonist smirks. "So, you are here to fix me?" The Imperial uncle solemnly nods. "From now on, I am watching your every move. If you are healed, get back to training." Very soon, 3 grueling days pass by. Everyone has been pushed to their absolute limits. Meanwhile, Tyler is completely lost and confused. After all, throughout these past 3 days, he has been desperately blocking the protagonist's uncontrollable bloodlust. The sheer mental torture has nearly driven the poor guy utterly insane. The protagonist ruthlessly twists the metaphorical knife. "What a tragic shame. You did not manage to beat me even once. If you had won just one match, maybe your bruised ego would feel better. Too bad you are just too weak." Leaving the insult hanging in the air, the protagonist motions for a trembling maid who has been waiting nearby. Tyler aggressively glares at the heavy chest she carries and demands an explanation. The protagonist smoothly replies, "Consider this your hard-earned compensation. I know I have crossed the line with you in the past. I am unsure if this covers it, but please deliver these riches to Baron Tile." With a dramatic thud, the protagonist shoves the extravagant box forward, overflowing with dazzling gold, silver, and precious gems. "Why are you still standing there? Expecting a dinner invitation?" And just like that, the hellish training arc between him and Tyler finally concludes. But the moment their intense sparring finishes, a wild, brand new wave of scandalous rumors explodes across the entire royal kingdom. Desperate for juicy gossip, swarms of nobles hound Tyler for the gritty details of their bloody clash. But Tyler rigidly insists he has absolutely no comment. Instantly, the gossips draw their own wild conclusions. The royal family must have dropped a massive fortune in hush money. Naturally, these absurd whispers reach the protagonist's ears. The sheer stupidity of it all makes him burst into frustrated laughter. Their wild imaginations are completely out of control. Is it really so hard to believe he just lost miserably and is too humiliated to admit it? Do these pampered nobles literally have nothing better to do all day than spread baseless, toxic gossip? Listening from the sidelines, the Imperial uncle dryly points out the protagonist's own infamous reputation. The boy is instantly rendered speechless. "Can you please stop dredging up my dark history?" he groans. Shaking his head, the protagonist shifts his piercing gaze toward his next unfortunate sparring victim. "After leaving, make sure to spread the actual results of our bloody duel." Receiving a terrified nod of agreement, the protagonist assumes the annoying rumors will finally die. But tragically, fate has a twisted sense of humor. The very next day, a nervous maid reports, "Your Highness, the kingdom whispers that you ruthlessly threatened Kate." The protagonist's eye twitches violently at the sheer audacity. Channeling his boiling rage, he unleashes a devastatingly fierce, explosive round of sword practice. Panting heavily after an intense set, he asks Carl how many challengers remain. Carl respectfully bows, confirming today's arrival is the absolute last. The final challenger is just a mere apprentice knight? How totally disappointing. I have absolutely nothing left to learn from them. Carl's voice grew dead serious. Today's challenger was no ordinary warrior. She was a true knight. Rejecting her family's comfortable legacy, she had carved her own path straight into the Knight Order. An absolute, undeniable genius. The protagonist's eyes sparked with sheer excitement. A prodigy from the legendary Iron Lion Order? Moments later, Alvin stepped onto the training grounds. The stunned guards recognized her instantly. She was the Iron Lion's famed prodigy. Her legendary reputation had already swept across the entire kingdom, the untouchable flower on the cliff, the thorny rose, the absolute beauty who left countless men utterly heartbroken. A guard whispered in sheer awe, "You had to hand it to the eldest prince." Securing a sparring session with such a breathtaking beauty was legendary, but what if she publicly crushed him? Wouldn't the prince become the kingdom's biggest laughingstock? The guard beside him immediately fired back. "Your perspective is far too narrow. Every single Iron Lion Knight is a monstrous genius among geniuses." Sure, Alvin held the title of apprentice knight. But that was only because her journey in the order had just begun. Her terrifying talent was already undeniable. The top brass had already secured her position as a fully pledged, official member behind closed doors. But the protagonist was deeply puzzled. Why would a monster of her caliber actively request a duel with him? Carl gave a vague explanation. There was probably some past misunderstanding. Hearing that, the protagonist's stomach dropped. The body's previous trash owner must have caused a monumental disaster. But what exact crime had he committed? Carl absolutely refused to speak. The protagonist helplessly turned to the maid beside him for answers. "Tell me, what exactly did I do?" The maid released a heavy, exhausted sigh. "Your Highness, you relentlessly harassed Sir Alvin at a grand banquet. You ordered her to become your personal maid. When she fiercely refused, you publicly humiliated her, calling her a hideous monster." The protagonist froze in sheer horror. That absolute lunatic. How could the original owner have been such a twisted piece of trash? Soon enough, Alvin proudly stepped into the training ground. The protagonist was utterly bewildered. How twisted was the original owner to call this breathtaking goddess ugly? Breaking the silence, Alvin offered a cold, precise bow. "It has certainly been a long time, Your Highness. You truly have not changed one single bit." The protagonist desperately denied the accusation. He claimed he had completely transformed. "Why don't you take a much closer look?" Surprisingly, Alvin actually began to scrutinize him with dead serious eyes. Right at that heavy moment, the Imperial Uncle finally arrived. Spotting the Imperial Uncle's arrival, Alvin immediately stepped forward, offering a formal introduction. "I am Alvin Kogane of the Iron Lions. I offer my highest respects to Count Balakard." The Imperial Uncle nodded, looking thoroughly pleased. "Be extremely careful today. The prince swings his blade like a rabid dog. Enough idle chatter." He aggressively signaled for the fighters to take their starting positions. The moment the signal dropped, Alvin drew her gleaming blade. She surged forward in a deadly straight line, pressuring the protagonist instantly. Initially, the protagonist didn't think much of her direct assault. Her flowing movements were simply breathtaking, but a split second later, bam! Alvin's devastating strike paralyzed his organs, forcing his internal magic to violently flow backward. His mind spun in absolute chaos. The protagonist simply could not understand this. It was one thing for her to be absolutely gorgeous. But why was her sheer physical power this freakishly terrifying? At this rate, total defeat was certain. He immediately ignited the Dragon Slayer's heart, and his oppressive aura completely reversed. Alvin's instincts screamed danger. She immediately leaped backward, violently widening the distance between them. What on earth just happened to him? His aura had mutated entirely. Even the simple blade in his hand radiated a completely different, terrifying energy. Yet, it was undeniably the exact same weapon. The protagonist smirked. "Though you are both single chain, your power crushes the rest." With those words, he fully unleashed the authority of a sword attendant. Judgment. In a flash, Alvin's hidden stats materialized. Aptitude: swordsmanship A, archery B, combat technique B, magic perception B, active traits. Swordsmanship genius, competitive spirit, peerless beauty, tough but tender, pure-hearted. The protagonist gasped. She actually possessed the legendary swordsmanship genius trait. Without warning, Alvin dropped into her combat stance once more. The two powerhouses clashed violently, their blinding sword flashes tangling in midair. The earth-shattering duel raged from high noon until fiery dusk. Both warriors were completely drained, yet no victor stood supreme. The Imperial uncle finally stepped forward, loudly signaling that today's brutal session was over. "We will continue tomorrow." The protagonist clicked his tongue in annoyance. "I was literally just about to finish this. I hadn't even unleashed my ultimate trump card yet." Alvin glared back with icy resolve. "I was about to use mine as well, so, you still want to fight?" Alvin fiercely refused to back down. "If you want to continue, I will fight you to the bitter end." With a thunderous roar, the Imperial uncle violently crushed their escalating argument. He immediately signaled for the royal physician to enter, who had been waiting anxiously in the shadows to step forward. "Please allow this loyal servant to heal your wounds, Your Highness. You have a severe abrasion here, and a deep bruise here." While receiving treatment, the protagonist cast a sideways glance at Alvin. At that exact same moment, Alvin was secretly watching the protagonist from the corner of her eye. Their intense gazes collided instantly. Both the protagonist and Alvin realized their secret glances had been caught. In a flash, they both snapped their heads away, pretending absolutely nothing had happened between them. And just like that, day 2 dawned. Yet, the two rivals still could not crown a victor. Soon, the fateful third day arrived. Even the elite guards never expected their brutal clash to escalate this far. Logically, this duel should have lacked any suspense whatsoever, ending as a one-sided massacre. We have all witnessed the eldest prince's monstrous strength, but I have heard terrifying rumors about Alvin too. Right then, the protagonist announced he had something to say before the battle commenced. Alvin assumed he was going to apologize for his past transgressions against her, and she immediately shot back with a freezing glare. She absolutely refused it. But the protagonist replied bluntly, "You are overthinking things. I just thought, since we are fighting this intensely, shouldn't we add a wager? The loser must grant the ultimate victor one single wish." The moment those words dropped, shockwaves hit the royal guards. Could it be? Had the eldest prince still not given up on claiming Sir Alvin? Even Alvin stood completely paralyzed. Reading their shocked faces, the protagonist knew they misunderstood. He quickly clarified, "I mean, if the winner demands an apology, you apologize. If the victor commands you to kneel, you fall to your knees." Delivering that ultimatum, his piercing gaze locked onto Alvin. Instantly, her racing heart skipped a dramatic beat. "If I win, does that mean I can force him to kneel and beg?" Composing her fiery spirit, she declared, "I serve the royal family and proudly represent the Iron Lion Order. Although I am merely an apprentice knight for now, I cannot act so disrespectfully toward your highness. But since your highness insists..." At the Imperial uncle's booming command, the two warriors officially ignited their duel. In a flash, blinding sword light intertwined as their auras collided with devastating force. But Alvin instantly sensed a terrifying shift. Adrian's overwhelming presence had exploded, making his blade blindingly fast and vicious. Had this monster been hiding his true power this entire time? She immediately leaped back, desperate to reset the deadly rhythm. But in the next heartbeat, her pupils violently contracted. The protagonist materialized right before her eyes, moving like pure teleportation. A split second later, the steel sword in her trembling hands cleanly snapped in two. Though they had fought to a bloody standstill for 2 days, this climax ended in a devastating instant. Alvin stared in pure disbelief. The spectating guards were left completely stunned and speechless. Yet, the most horrified witness was actually the legendary Imperial uncle. The protagonist's explosive burst of speed had far surpassed even elite second-ranked knights. With slow, dominant steps, he approached the defeated Alvin. "It seems this victory belongs to me, Alvin Kogane. From this second onward, you are mine." Hearing this arrogant declaration, the nearby guards felt their scalps tingle with dread. So the eldest prince was truly still driven by twisted lust. Even his loyal guard, Carl, seriously doubted if he had completely misjudged his master. When Carl was first assigned to protect the eldest prince, the dark rumors had left him completely on edge. However, throughout this grueling training period, the prince never threw the chaotic, blind tantrums the wild rumors had promised. He possessed blazing arrogance, sure, but for royalty born with supreme power, a fiery temper was perfectly natural. He trained with demonic desperation, violently pushing his battered body to the brink of unconsciousness. So why was he suddenly spouting garbage that disgraced the royal bloodline and crushed the sacred spirit of knighthood? Hearing his possessive words, Alvin grew so furious she actually burst out laughing. "So this is what your highness truly wanted all along?" The protagonist nodded without any hesitation. "Yes. Even though you cannot defeat a rogue prince like me right now, that does not matter. I desire the limitless potential and future of the knight named Alvin Kogane. I need a warrior who will truly follow my path. Not a pawn who blindly obeys the king's protection orders, but a legendary knight who belongs only to me, Adrian. In my eyes, you possess divine talent and unmatched swordsmanship. So, will you become a sworn knight who serves only me?" Alvin froze completely. Since childhood, her burning dream was becoming a knight, and she had fought bitterly reaching here. Yet, because of her striking beauty, no matter where she traveled, nobody ever respected her as a real warrior. To earn true acknowledgement, she was forced to bleed and train significantly harder than everyone else combined. Even after crushing every single apprentice knight, she could never shatter the insulting label of a pretty ornament, forever blocked from crossing that final threshold. But the towering man before her felt entirely different. He claimed he only desired her raw potential and future as a true knight, but was that actually his hidden intention? Weighing her destiny, Alvin inhaled a deep, trembling breath. I accept your terms, but you must swear to one condition. Do not look at me as a fragile woman. Acknowledge me as a true knight. If you can promise me that, then my sword is yours to command. The main character agreed instantly. Overcoming this challenge will be incredibly simple. Right after his declaration, Alvin dropped to a single knee. I am Alvin, the firstborn daughter of the proud Kogain bloodline. I pledge eternal devotion to Prince Adrian, offering my blade and future entirely to your royal highness. The main character smiled with absolute approval. Gently resting the steel blade upon her shoulder, he spoke. I am Adrian, the legitimate Leon Burke's successor. By my authority, I forge you into a knight. In that monumental second, the main character secured his first fiercely loyal personal warrior. By tomorrow morning, this shocking revelation echoed down every single bustling kingdom alleyway. The mighty Iron Lion Order members felt completely baffled. Why pledge unwavering fealty to a notorious scoundrel like the eldest royal son? Does a dark secret hide beneath this? What is your theory? Could some scandalous, unspoken romance exist between her and his highness? Perhaps our eldest prince could not claim her publicly, making this holy knight vow a perfect disguise. That theory holds weight. This entire situation smelled bizarre from the start. She possessed zero logic to join that highly questionable, rogue deathmatch. Those absolutely ridiculous rumors infected the capital like wildfire. Hearing these lies made the main character's simmering anger boil over. These mindless gossips are genuinely delusional. Have they seriously got zero productive tasks to accomplish? Do I honestly resemble a malicious, calculating villain plotting sinister deeds? This intense inquiry forced Carl into complete silence, deeming any response wildly unsafe. Suddenly recalling a crucial detail, he halted the main character's raging outburst right there. I have endlessly pondered your profound words from that specific afternoon. The main character stared, utterly confused. What afternoon? Which exact phrase? Carl clarified it was the statement spoken during the bloody arena clash. Which exact sentence did he mean? The main character paused before realization struck like lightning. That particular declaration probably caused you massive discomfort. However, my spoken words were absolute truth. If the royal palace commanded your banishment elsewhere, could you realistically decline? He firmly continued. If you desire, pledge your fierce loyalty to me. If I willingly offered my eternal oath, would you actually accept it? The main character immediately rejected this notion, shaking his head. Carl remained utterly bewildered. Why brutally reject him so fast? The main character calmly explained. Because instructing someone like you sounds incredibly dull. Right then, a servant nervously slipped an envelope through the heavy doors. His Majesty actually shattered my house arrest this fast. Previously, the monarch glared as if condemning me to rot inside this royal prison forever. I genuinely cannot comprehend whatever schemes are brewing inside that royal ruler's complex mind. Carl questioned back. Is regaining the freedom to walk outside not a spectacular victory? The main character released a deeply exhausted sigh. Escaping this grand princely cage changes nothing, because my destination options are zero. I lack close allies and possess absolutely nobody to invite anywhere. Suddenly, the servant organizing the morning mail gasped in sheer terror. The main character demanded answers, and she revealed a stamped invitation arriving straight from Alfie. The main character grew increasingly confused. Does this piece of parchment secretly devour human souls? Why display such massive panic? Why would Alfie mail this toward me? Do we share a close bond? The maid trembled, suggesting His Highness read it immediately. An exclusive young aristocratic gathering. That title sounds completely devoid of any moral decency whatsoever. The trembling servant explained everything. This represents a chaotic party scene Your Highness previously frequented. The main character experienced instant, jarring shock. I actively participated in such a bizarre, twisted venue? The servant nodded firmly. Whenever free time appeared, Your Highness plunged into their bottomless pits of alcohol and pure, wicked indulgence. Absorbing this tragic past, the main character just heavily sighed. My relentless physical conditioning consumes my schedule completely. I refuse to join such a disturbing, senseless party. However, immediately after speaking, the main character froze solid upon noticing the Eli clan mentioned inside. His curiosity sparked instantly. My uncle claimed they were the stubborn bloodline refusing to abandon the ancient magic heart. Despite their tragic downfall 100 years prior, perhaps investigating this mystery proves worthwhile. Realizing this grand opportunity, the main character firmly commanded the servant to prepare his attendants. The servant bowed respectfully. "I shall arrange your highness's royal necessities." Before anyone realized, 4 grueling months vanished like smoke. During this hellish period, he gritted his teeth through agonizing pain, completely obliterating his formerly heavy, sluggish physique. Even the elite royal tailor standing nearby offered overwhelming praise. The eldest prince possessed an absolutely monstrous, terrifying level of willpower. "Your Royal Highness's current measurements have dramatically shrunk below half of their original tragic size." Receiving such glowing compliments launched the main character into a spectacular mood. "Moving forward, I entrust every single piece of my formal attire to your capable hands." Days later, the main character finally departed toward that highly questionable, bizarre, aristocratic club. However, genuine confusion clouded his mind. He merely intended to experience minor entertainment outside. Did his departure truly require such an overwhelmingly massive, theatrical escort display? It felt like they genuinely feared the sprawling capital might miss this notorious royal bastard leaving his luxurious fortress. Pondering this ridiculous spectacle, the main character locked his intense gaze onto the servant ahead. Following months of hellish combat training, his worldly senses had evolved into something terrifyingly sharp. Prince Adrian frowns, demanding to know how the jagged scar ended up on the maid's shoulder. The answer leaves him disgusted. It is the previous owner's cruel doing once again. The main character is genuinely baffled. How did the original prince survive this long after inflicting such ruthless torment on his own people? This loyal maid has served him for years, yet her own master never bothered to learn her name. Feeling a twinge of guilt, he gently asks for it. The maid answers softly, "I am Adilia of the Bavaria family." That name strikes Adrian like a bolt of lightning, shaking him to his core. Instantly, a vivid memory floods his mind, a fierce, foul-mouthed warrior woman who ruthlessly punched her way through bloody battlefields with her bare fists. Even though centuries have passed, just thinking of her overwhelming aura sends an icy chill racing down his spine. But wait, if she possessed such godlike strength, then why are her descendants completely erased from the aristocratic noble registry? Adrian's survival instincts scream that a massive conspiracy is hiding in the shadows. Just then, Carl calls out from outside the carriage, announcing their arrival. Adrian pinches the bridge of his nose and mutters, "Your timing is truly impeccable." Carl blinks in sheer confusion, clueless as to how he ruined the mood. Adrian simply sighs, dryly remarking that ignorance is a blissful luxury. Shifting his piercing gaze back to Adilia, he states, "Once I am done here, let us talk properly." Adilia freezes in total bewilderment, wondering what a grand prince could possibly want to discuss with a lowly maid. Carl is equally dumbfounded, his mind racing with scandalous questions about what just happened inside that carriage. Before he can ask, a shady figure approaches the prince. Bernardo of the Eli family greets Prince Adrian. "It has only been a few months. Yet your highness has lost so much weight. You must have suffered a terrible ordeal." Adrian stares in sheer disbelief. This man looks exactly like a cheap street thug, yet he carries the prestigious bloodline of the Eli family. Was the original prince nothing more than a glorified gangster himself? Is this truly a case of trash attracting trash? Suddenly, a wildly dangerous plan sparks inside Adrian's sharp mind. Seeing the prince's chilling expression drastically shift, Bernardo mistakenly assumes his highness is suddenly falling gravely ill. Adrian shakes his head with a dark smirk. "I just feel I came to the perfect place. Today is definitely going to be fiercely entertaining." Bernardo stares back, absolutely lost. Since when does the reckless eldest prince speak in such dark riddles? Soon, they enter the grand banquet hall. The longer Bernardo watches, the more his alarm bells ring. In the past, this royal fool would be blackout drunk the absolute second he walked through those doors. But today, he sits perfectly upright, radiating an overwhelming, kingly aura that belongs to an entirely different beast. Suddenly, a completely wasted noble staggers right up to Adrian. "I heard your highness finally tamed that fierce female knight, the legendary flower of the Iron Lion. She looks breathtaking in heavy armor. I cannot imagine how deliciously charming she must be without it. She must taste absolutely divine, right? If I knew she was that incredibly easy to conquer, I would have definitely claimed her first." Adrian's eyes turn ice cold. Instead of exploding, he calmly asks if the drunkard has any other living siblings. Clueless as to why the prince cares, the foolish man proudly brags about having a younger brother. The very instant those tragic words leave his mouth, Adrian shatters his face with a devastating punch. The explosive blow leaves the noble completely dazed. "Why did your highness strike me? Are we not good brothers?" Adrian smiles darkly. "By good brothers, do you mean treating me like a complete idiot? I can tolerate you secretly thinking I am an idiot, but treating me like one to my face is a death wish." Hearing this terrifying declaration, The entire hall freezes in absolute shock. What has possessed the eldest prince today? Did he get drunk after just 2 drinks? Otherwise, how could he dare to say something so terrifying? In a flash, Adrian unleashes a bone-crushing uppercut directly into the man's jaw, sending his limp body flying more than 10 meters across the room. The surrounding aristocratic youth stand paralyzed in horror, completely unable to comprehend what violent madness has seized the eldest prince today. Did I not tell you? Today is going to be very interesting. Nobody dares to breathe, terrified of his next unpredictable move. The grand hall instantly plunges into deathly silence. Everyone trembles in pure terror, praying they are not his next target. Only then does Adrian speak. Since you have a capable younger brother, your prestigious bloodline will not be extinguished. Without hesitation, he raises his foot and viciously stomps down hard on the shattered man's crotch. The luxurious hall, which had been perfectly pin-drop silent moments before, is instantly ripped apart by a soul-tearing, blood-curdling scream. Every single male noble in the room physically flinches, a phantom pain striking their own groins. Adrian's domineering voice echoes over the agonizing wails. From now on, your younger brother is the family heir. Delivering that brutal verdict, Adrian slowly shifts his predatory gaze toward Bernardo. Just one chilling glance makes Bernardo's legs turn to absolute jelly. Terrified he is the next victim, Adrian states coldly that he is not some kind of ruthless devil. Go out and summon my royal knights. Bernardo feels like he just escaped death. He immediately scrambles up, gasping. I will go at once. The second he vanishes, the grand hall falls completely silent. Even breathing becomes cautious, terrified of drawing his deadly gaze. The protagonist does not waste a single second. All women in the hall, he commands, leave. A man tries sneaking out, but a chilling voice stops him cold. I only gave permission to the women. Do you wish to become a woman too? The gruesome scene from just moments ago flashes through the man's terrified mind. He instantly freezes in his tracks. Prince Adrian sweeps his dominating gaze across the entire hall. Do you know why I am doing this? From the moment I entered, not one of you knelt before your prince. Disrespecting me is one thing, but you actually dared to insult my knight right to my face. In a situation like this, what crime should I charge you with? Right on cue, Carl steps into the hall and calmly delivers the devastating finishing blow. They can be charged with insulting the royal family. Furthermore, they are challenging royal authority. Therefore, they can be tried for high treason. The moment those heavy words drop, every arrogant noble turns deathly pale. None of them ever expected this petty clash to escalate into a literal death sentence. Carl's unwavering voice echoes through the room. Please give the order, Your Highness. A few days later, the king learns of the incident, his face twisting in absolute disbelief. Insulting the royal family? Treason? You actually used excuses like that to arrest 14 young nobles? Are you trying to force the entire nobility to completely turn against the royal family? The protagonist explains calmly. They were already stains on their own families. I am simply clearing away that trash for them. They haven't even had the time to thank me yet. Once I write a letter to their siblings and let them inherit the family estate, do you really think those nobles will still hate me? For a moment, the king is left entirely speechless by the bold question. After a heavy silence, the king can only order the protagonist to leave at once. After leaving, the protagonist heads straight for Adilia. But when she sees that smiling face, her heart instantly plummets into an abyss. I am doomed, she thinks, trembling. The protagonist is caught completely off guard. Even with his kindest smile, she is still terrified out of her mind. It seems the body's previous owner really subjected her to pure hell. That bastard truly deserved to die. But the real reason the protagonist came looking for Adilia is exactly because of what happened back in the carriage. She is clearly that legendary person's direct descendant. Yet, she knows absolutely nothing about her ancestors' epic legacy. It is as if someone forcibly erased her bloodline's glory without a trace. Intrigued, the protagonist activates his judgment skill. In the next instant, Adilia's glowing status window materializes right before the protagonist's eyes. Scanning the stats, the protagonist is shaken to his absolute core. Her S-rank swordsmanship talent is not the surprising part. After all, she carries that infamous war maniac's blood. But she possesses no trait capable of suppressing her dark, inherited madness. If that chaotic madness awakens, could the world even survive the resulting devastation? At that thought, the protagonist feels a massive headache coming on. But no matter what, he has to try. S-rank talent is incredibly rare, and he can perfectly exploit her unique trait, a servant's mentality. Anyone with this unique trait feels intense, overwhelming joy from the very bottom of their soul just by serving a master. With this in mind, the protagonist looks straight at Adilia, asking if she is ready to swear ultimate loyalty to him. Adilia freezes like a deer in headlights. Her mind races frantically, unable to process the sheer weight of his sudden request. Why is His Highness saying this out of nowhere? Is being his personal maid not enough? Does he want her to warm his bed? Reading her panic, the protagonist sighs. You are overthinking it. I only want you to become my knight. Adilia instantly panics. Such divine grace is not something a lowly person like me can ever bear. I will make your family prosper again, he declares. In return, you must swear loyalty and serve me as your one true master. Adelia's eyes widen in sheer disbelief. She never expected such a glorious miracle to literally fall from the sky and land on her head. Still, she anxiously asks if he is telling the absolute truth. If I swear loyalty to you, you will truly make my family prosper again? If you accept, I will even summon them to the royal capital. You can see your family whenever your heart desires. And just like that, the prince secures his second overpowered knight. She kneels down. I am Adilia, eldest daughter of the Bevan family. In this very moment, I swear my eternal loyalty to Prince Adrian. I take you as my master and dedicate my entire life to you. He cannot believe he just bagged an S-rank subordinate this easily. From this day forward, you are to obey my orders unconditionally. As he declares this, the protagonist gently places his hand on Adelia's head. But as he strokes her hair, he suddenly realizes something is terribly off. Why is her face burning bright red? A few days later, wild rumors flood the capital. Word on the street is the fierce flower of the Iron Lion only swore loyalty to him because she was ruthlessly coerced. Rumors spread that he crushed those arrogant young nobles just to steal their beautiful concubines. Gossip claims that making a swordless maid his personal knight is just an excuse. People whisper he is secretly building a private harem instead of a true knight order. The main character is completely baffled by how insane this world has become. He simply took in a single knight. Yet, in the eyes of the public, his actions are twisted into something scandalous. The street rumors are bad, but even the king believes he has completely lost his way. His royal uncle thinks he gave up entirely. Even that narcissistic third prince dares to lecture him. He just cannot understand this madness. He only made a few simple moves. So why did these crazy rumors explode overnight? Is there a hidden mole watching his every step? Suddenly, a maid reports that the queen is on her way. It seems Her Majesty is also coming to lecture him about his behavior. But the queen steps inside and immediately drops a bombshell. It seems my son has finally reached that rebellious age. In that case, my duty as your mother is crystal clear. Just leave absolutely everything to me and do not worry. I will definitely find you the perfect partner. Dropping that bomb, the queen hurries off, leaving him standing there completely stunned and speechless. His life is officially ruined. Soon, he summons Adilia, ready to awaken her dormant magical power. Adilia can hardly believe her own ears. She might actually wield magic. Instantly, a brilliant magical aura explodes around him. Piece by piece, he draws out the dormant magic sleeping inside Adilia. Even if this world forgets the sword marquis, he remembers her perfectly. He remembers her path, and every brilliant streak of sword light she ever cast. In this breathtaking moment, the pulsing golden magic feels exactly like her heroic heart beating once again. The intense awakening process finishes quickly. Adilia never expected unlocking magic to be this incredibly simple, yet her wild energy feels entirely different from a normal person's aura. He calmly explains. People have entirely different constitutions. Next, I will teach you the legendary method of forging a magic heart. Practice this core technique on your own whenever you have free time. But before he can even finish his sentence, he suddenly collapses headfirst onto the cold stone ground. Forging a magic heart for someone else practically drained his entire life force. This pathetic, weak body really cannot handle the strain for even a single second. Pushing through the pain, he forces himself to stand upright and weakly gestures for Adilia to step back. But Adilia stares in total confusion. Why is your highness doing so much for a lowly maid? Meeting her gaze, he gives only one simple answer. Because you are mine. Flustered, Adilia quickly bows her head. I will spend my entire life serving you with absolute loyalty. He steps closer, closing the distance between them. Then call me master, so I can actually hear it. Shockingly, Adilia does not hesitate for a single second and calls him master directly. Cold sweat instantly drips down his forehead. Did he just awaken something completely demonic? Is this dangerous dynamic really going to be okay? A few days later, Carl arrives and urgently reports the latest kingdom news to him. As a key witness to the recent disturbance, Bernardo is strictly detained by the elite royal guard. It seems absolutely no one is allowed to visit him before the official trial begins. He sighs, feeling these ridiculous nobles are making a massive fuss over a totally minor incident. Is there truly any real need to convene a grand tribunal? Sure enough, the lazy nobles of this kingdom are so incredibly idle, they have completely lost their minds. Shifting his focus, he looks at Adilia standing faithfully beside him. He asks how her magic heart training is progressing. She confidently answers that her magical core is already perfectly stabilized. Hearing her progress, he nods with genuine satisfaction. Starting from today, you will face intense training directly with me. Go change your clothes right now, then meet me at the training ground. Also, completely stop wiping dusty vases from now on. You are a knight now. The only thing you should be wiping is your sharp blade. Soon, he steps confidently onto the open training ground. Moments later, his strict royal uncle arrives. Frowning deeply, the man aggressively demands to know what he is doing now. What is the point of training this weak girl? He replies with absolute calmness. She is already my chosen knight. Training my own loyal knight is perfectly normal. His royal uncle immediately explodes into a blazing rage. Is the sacred title of knight something just any peasant can have? Fooling around in private is one thing, but you actually dared to bring her onto the sacred training ground. He tunes out the yelling. His royal uncle is simply becoming more and more unbelievably annoying. Just then, Adilia finishes her grueling run. Panting heavily, she jogs up to the two men and reports, "I have successfully finished 10 laps." The second she finishes speaking, he tosses a wooden sword into her waiting hands. "Now, your real training officially begins." Without hesitation, he executes a flawless sword demonstration right in front of Adilia. After finishing, he silently signals for her to copy his powerful strike. Adilia instinctively trembles, deeply feeling that someone like her definitely cannot pull this off. Yet, his every single majestic sword posture is already fiercely burned into her brain. She fiercely raises her blade and swings. His royal uncle instantly freezes, completely stunned by her monstrous, unbelievable talent. Could a lowly maid who never held a blade truly accomplish this? The main character is absolutely stunned by her display. She flawlessly masters the lethal technique after just one glance. Adilia shifts nervously under their intense gazes, mistakenly believing her fluid sword stances are simply far too sloppy. To the main character, her humble words sound like an absolute flex. Even his formidable royal uncle is utterly blindsided by her terrifying, monstrous talent. The main character instantly stakes his claim with dominating authority. "She belongs to me. Do not even dare to look." His royal uncle scoffs coldly. "You are an amusing brat. But after wielding a blade for mere months, you truly believe you can tame her?" Instantly, he unleashes a suffocating, bone-crushing aura meant to force anyone into absolute submission. Without hesitation, the main character ignites the heart of magic within his chest, violently pushing back the overwhelming pressure. "If I cannot command her, no soul alive can. I am no longer that pathetic, worthless prince of the past. I slaughtered a monstrous troll out of pure thirst, draining its bone marrow to survive. When a massive dragon coiled around a mountain and blocked my destined path, I severed its head in a single strike. I am the legendary divine sword, Gruhan. Anyone opposing my will faces sheer destruction." Explosive magical energy, completely rivaling his royal uncle's devastating power, fiercely erupts from the main character. His blazing crimson eyes lock intensely onto his rival. "I will say this once. She is mine." An apocalyptic wave of aura crashes across the training ground, swallowing them both. What is rightfully mine, absolutely no one can ever snatch away. Yet the very second that bold declaration escapes him, the main character suddenly feels his entire reality slipping away. His body plunging into a freezing ocean abyss until only a suffocating, pitch-black darkness remains in his fading vision. A paralyzing, bone-chilling frost violently coils around his entire trembling body, drowning out all senses. This dread perfectly mirrors the nightmare of his past existence as an inanimate blade. Could this terrifying sensation spell total doom? A warning that Gruhan is fully devouring this mortal vessel. Suddenly, a roaring battle cry from his royal uncle forcefully yanks the main character out from the endless void. Do you possess any clue what madness you are attempting? A basic knight protects dozens in the meat grinder of war. If I personally forge her skills, this prodigy will unquestionably ascend as the realm's most legendary future knight. Upon the blood-soaked battlefield, she could easily rescue thousands or even tens of thousands. The main character never anticipated that this calculating veteran would shamelessly try poaching her mid-fight for this exact strategic reason. Truly fitting for the ruthless supreme commander of the northern border, but does that even matter? His royal uncle glares in utter disbelief. "So what?" you ask. "Even knowing her blade could shield your countless citizens, will you stubbornly continue down this path of absolute ruin?" Storming off, he fully intends to demand the king hand her over. Suddenly, Adilia boldly interrupts. "My body and soul are forever bound to His Highness. Even in death, I refuse to follow your path." The veteran commander's scarred face instantly twists with pure agony over such wasted genius. He is a rogue prince, yet you ignore the greater cause? Then another voice pierces the tension. "Does your esteemed excellency, the royal uncle, truly fail to understand human speech? Furthermore, your excellency, has it not been an eternity since you actually imparted any real guidance? Or was your grand master plan simply to help me shed some weight? If so, please do us a favor and vanish immediately. And if you ever wish to step foot inside my domain again, you will cease meddling in my business entirely." The mighty royal uncle furiously clicks his tongue in sheer disgust. Who in their right mind cares about your pathetic, ruined palace? Yet despite those bold claims, he shamelessly returns to the main character's palace the very next sunrise. Surprisingly, his relentless private guidance for Adilia becomes far more meticulous than his past lessons. Who could have ever predicted the fearsome supreme commander of the northern border secretly harbored such an incredibly stubborn, awkward side? Suddenly, an echoing, melodic resonance of crying steel erupts across the training grounds. Massive beads of nervous sweat rapidly cascade down the main character's hardened face. He knew her talent was monstrous, but this level of divine mastery is terrifying. How many days has it been? She has already unlocked the legendary resonance of the blade. The main character is visibly shaken to his core, yet he forces a calm facade, muttering, "Your progress is slightly slower than anticipated, but acceptable." Internally, his alarm bells are screaming in pure panic. At this monstrous rate, her power will eclipse mine. Suddenly, the royal uncle aggressively stomps toward the duo, a hurricane of rage surrounding him. He furiously interrogates the main character. Why taint Adilia with a pathetic trick like the heart of magic, when her limitless, boundless potential demanded a far superior path? You have completely ruined her. Hearing those deeply insulting words, the main character's gaze instantly turns murderous. With a sharp gesture, he commands Carl to violently throw his uncle out. The veteran coldly snorts, claiming such fake hospitality is unnecessary since he can walk himself out. Meanwhile, Adilia watches the escalating chaos in utter confusion. How did those two suddenly clash like that? Could the ancient arts I mastered truly be just a worthless trick? If not, why would the royal uncle mock it? The main character fired back. The heart of magic is no cheap parlor trick. They only mock it because this kingdom's people lost their history. If they remembered its true glory, they would never treat it like garbage. You will soon witness the true terror of the heart of magic. I swear, that day is approaching fast. In the blink of an eye, a new dawn breaks. Today, the royal uncle stands before the main character once more, issuing a fierce fencing challenge. After your pathetic display yesterday, I truly thought you would run away and hide. The royal uncle completely ignores the insult. He simply declares he will restrict his power to just a single magic chain. Force me back even half a step, and you earn my respect. Fair enough, the main character smirks. But what is my reward? I will grant you one absolute wish. If you win, even if you demand the stars in the heavens, I will pluck them down for you. Since you are feeling so incredibly generous, I will claim that prize right now. With that bold claim, the main character launches a deadly thrust straight at the royal uncle's throat, but the veteran easily slips past the blade. Missing the first strike, the main character instantly unleashes a ferocious second wave of slashes. Yet, no matter how many desperate blows rain down, the royal uncle stands like an immovable mountain. Nailed down, he refuses to retreat even a fraction of an inch, effortlessly neutralizing every single strike. Is this all you have? If this is your absolute limit, just surrender right now. The main character grits his teeth, finding the royal uncle's arrogant taunts endlessly frustrating. But he has to admit, the man's strength is terrifying, truly fitting for the supreme commander guarding the brutal northern borders. With my current heart of magic, I simply cannot overpower him. Realizing this, the main character decides to use his silver tongue to shift the tide. Does your excellency, the royal uncle, not find it bizarre? 400 years ago, knights wielding the heart of magic achieved legendary military triumphs. Yet today, everyone abandons this glorious path of honor, simply because the magic chain appeared, which they blindly believe is superior to the heart of magic. But is the magic chain truly invincible? What is genuinely weak is not the ancient heart of magic, but the pathetic fools wielding it. I told you before, even among hearts of magic, absolute tiers exist. Tell me, have you ever heard of the legendary martial soul hymn? The royal uncle glares, annoyed by the main character's endless chatter. This is a brutal battlefield, not a classroom for history lessons. If you need more time to catch your breath, I can wait. But the main character simply raises a hand, signaling no delay is needed. Since you dismiss the heart of magic as trash meant for lowly mercenaries, I will personally demonstrate its supreme power to you right now. With those defiant words, the main character begins chanting a haunting, ancient ballad. The royal uncle frowns in absolute confusion. Why is this boy suddenly singing in the middle of a life-or-death duel? If he lost his mind, he should lock himself in his room. But in the very next split second, the veteran's pupils shrink in sheer terror. An overwhelmingly dense aura violently spirals around the main character. This monstrous mana is entirely impossible for a single chain user to possess. It easily shatters the limits of an ordinary double-chain knight. Do you finally understand? This is the true might of the heart of magic. The power your era abandoned. The royal uncle's heart violently jolts. He never imagined a forgotten ancient ballad could actually summon such a devastating force. But no matter what desperate tricks you play, it is all a completely futile struggle. The magic chain absolutely suppresses the heart of magic. You can never hope to defeat a warrior who wields the chain's superior authority. Then open your eyes wide. I will show you the absolute pinnacle of the heart of magic. With a thunderous roar, the main character raises his blade and charges like a meteor. The two warriors violently clash, head-on. Do you comprehend the difference now? The stronger the magic chain, the heavier its crushing suppression over your heart of magic. Even restricted to a single chain, I can easily force your pathetic magic to flow backward. With a devastating strike, the royal uncle sends the main character skidding back. But the main character laughs, pushing this ancient hymn to its absolute limit. In his past life, he survived over 100 brutal death matches. He forced his heart of magic to withstand the chain's crushing gravity more than 100 times. Through over 100 bloody clashes, my heart of magic has weathered 1,000 devastating waves. Right now, I will teach you the true meaning of a supreme class difference. Squeezing out every last drop of his aura, the main character erupts. He launches an even more savage, earth-shattering assault against the veteran commander. The royal uncle feels the boy's explosive power surge yet again. But surely, this has to be his absolute limit, right? The very second that thought crosses his mind, sheer shock paralyzes him. This brat's aura is still mutating, turning monstrously ferocious with every single sword strike. But if his initial explosive outburst already shattered the realm of double-chain knights, this meant his current aura had brushed the threshold of 3 chains. How was this even possible? You look completely baffled, Zhao. Have you already forgotten? I warned you that even magic hearts have strict class divisions. It is just like the ancient proverb. The magic heart is never weak, only the vessel wielding it. Hearing this absolute disrespect, the royal uncle erupts into a blazing fury. You just gained a fraction of power. Is that tiny spark fueling your blinding arrogance? With those words, the royal uncle viciously slashes his blade downward. The shockwave of pure sword energy instantly blasts the protagonist backward. Thanks to your towering arrogance, I will no longer hold back. The protagonist sneers, noting this old man changes faces faster than turning pages. But realistically, trying to conquer this brutal duel with a basic grade hymn is completely naive from the very beginning. Realizing this, the protagonist unleashes his ultimate psychological warfare. Did you know 400 years ago, all knights made one fatal mistake? To ensure their sacred arts were perfectly inherited, they slaughtered every enemy, leaving 0 threats for their descendants to fight. So every legacy remained flawlessly intact, including that legendary martial soul hymn. But the relentless flow of time violently eroded those knights' former greatness. Modern fools believe dragons only exist in fairy tales, completely ignorant of the ancient troll kings. Even if they hear these epic sagas, they dismiss them as mere childish delusions. Naturally, new hymns are constantly forged, but their absolute peak only reaches the pathetic level of defeating 100 ordinary soldiers. Do you honestly believe that pathetic victory can stop a raging tidal wave? Trash relying on low-tier magic chains will never touch the majestic heights of ancient heroes. The royal uncle stares, completely baffled. What is this brat rambling about? Did he get completely drunk before this deadly duel? Suddenly, a terrifying dark red aura violently erupts and wraps around the protagonist. This sinister magical energy pulsates and swirls around him like living parasites. The protagonist's overwhelming presence skyrockets in a single heartbeat. Why am I revealing this? Because I want you to painfully understand the magnificent legacy your generation foolishly threw away. It completely does not matter if you fail to understand now. I will beat this lesson into you personally. With those chilling words, the protagonist begins chanting the legendary dragon-slaying hymn. Its essence is so dense, no ordinary blade can pierce it, yet sharp enough to easily cleave dragon scales and drink boiling blood. But after whispering merely a few verses, his fragile body feels like it might violently shatter. Instantly, a glowing blue system warning window flashes before his eyes. Warning: the current physical vessel cannot contain this supreme hymn. A massive portion is forcefully omitted, allowing only one single fraction to be unleashed. As 1/16 of the mighty hymn completes, his terrifying aura surges once more. In the very next breathless instant, he violently charges straight toward the royal uncle. Unfazed, the royal uncle meets the devastating blow head-on. However, his internal magic chain suddenly trembles frantically, completely terrified it might be swallowed whole by this monstrous power. The older man's heart plummets. If this terrifying clash continues, an easy victory is impossible. He might actually be drained completely dry by this monstrous brat. Panicking, the royal uncle grits his teeth. He shamefully ignites the full power of 4 chains, attempting to violently blast the protagonist away with one desperate strike. But even after shamelessly unleashing the mighty power of 4 chains, his royal blade is effortlessly sliced in half by the protagonist. The main character sighs, feeling this pathetic old man is simply too boring to fight. He arrogantly promised to use only 1 chain, yet the very second true panic hit, he desperately threw out absolutely every trump card he had. Still, the protagonist simply cannot be bothered to argue with a hypocrite. He slowly braces himself and stands tall. Do you finally understand, Count Valbalicard? The true weakness never lies within the magic heart, but strictly within the pathetic fool possessing it. Just like that, the protagonist secures an absolute victory over his royal uncle, but a second later, his entire vision violently plunges into pitch blackness. He completely loses consciousness, remaining comatose for several agonizing days. This brutal backlash is the steep price his fragile body must pay for forcefully igniting the dragon-slaying hymn, even though he barely chanted a single section out of 1/16. Judging by the glorious result, this deadly gamble was entirely worth it. With this ultimate trump card, it is enough to easily crush that bastard, his third brother. Just then, Adilia bursts into the protagonist's silent room. Seeing he has finally awakened, Adilia is so overjoyed that she nearly bursts into tears. The second you dramatically collapsed, the entire arena descended into absolute chaos. The furious queen ruthlessly scolded the royal uncle until he could not even lift his disgraced head. The protagonist smirks, feeling the old man completely deserved that humiliation. Who told him to stop holding back? Adilia then reveals the royal uncle left a frantic message. She was ordered to notify him the very second His Highness woke up. However, the protagonist commands Adilia to strictly conceal all news of his miraculous recovery for now. His absolute top priority is rapidly repairing the severe mental damage caused by overusing that legendary hymn. If he fails to recover fast enough, his current mind will violently twist and shatter against his past life's memories. If that collision happens, severe memory loss and spiraling into total madness would truly be the luckiest possible outcome. One wrong move, and he could instantly turn into a mindless, drooling fool with rolled-back eyes. A chilling shiver ran down his spine just imagining it. Suddenly, his stomach let out a loud rumble. Adilia quickly returned carrying a warm meal. Between bites, the main character asked about her legendary ancestor. Agnes was once a legendary swordswoman. As her true descendant, you are fated to inherit the martial soul hymn she left behind. Adilia gasped, stunned by her ancestor's legacy. Was she truly worthy of such immense power? The main character nodded solemnly. You absolutely can. However, you must grow much stronger than your current self to truly master that divine hymn. Tell me first, why do you wield the sword? Adilia blushed deeply, stammering endlessly as she struggled to find the right words. The main character let out a helpless sigh. If the answer escapes you right now, just forget it. You can simply tell me later. But upon hearing those words, Adilia stared intensely at him. I wield my sword solely to become your highness's personal blade. I am willing to dedicate my entire life only to you. The moment those devoted words fell, the main character noticed a radiant golden mist suddenly rising around Adilia. The glowing mist surged and gathered right in front of him. A system window popped up, reading, Obtained Adelia's Hymn of Submission. A new martial soul hymn has been successfully forged. Hymn of Submission, ordinary rank. Another martial soul hymn has been created. Hymn of Dominion, ordinary rank. The main character completely froze dead in his tracks. The next second, crucial knowledge about the Hymn of Submission flooded his mind. Wait, didn't this basically bind their souls together for life? What felt even more completely outrageous was this twist. The bloodline of a cursing, bloodthirsty war maniac had somehow forged a hymn of submission. For the very first time in his hundreds of years of living, the main character truly felt this world had gone totally insane. But regardless of the madness, he had undeniably gained massive help. Adelia's power growth from here on out would directly amplify his own strength. Realizing this absolute cheat, he deeply thanked Adilia. Although even at this exact moment, he still had absolutely no clue what this mysterious hymn actually did in battle. A few days drifted by, and the main character decided the timing was finally perfect. He immediately ordered Adilia to spread the news of his full recovery. But right at this very moment, a wave of gut-wrenching regret completely washed over him. If he could turn back time, he would have definitely stayed hidden in bed longer. Dealing with enemies who hated this body was actually simple enough. But who could have predicted this twist? The very first visitor at his door turned out to be the one person who adored him the most. The main character let out a heavy, truly helpless sigh at the thought. Hearing his exhaustion, the queen assumed he was dwelling on his royal uncle and softly comforted him. Your uncle truly meant no harm with that. Even if burning resentment fills your heart, please set it aside for now. After all, we are blood. The main character quickly clarified that he held absolutely zero grudges. How could you possibly not resent that man? He treated you so ruthlessly and constantly nagged at you. If you claim to feel nothing, you must just be trying to comfort me. The main character felt his helpless despair multiply. Telling the honest truth was somehow being treated like a massive lie. Besides, he secretly planted an inner demon inside the uncle that day. His suffering should be far worse. If he conquers that demon, his martial path will soar. If he fails, he will simply become a complete waste. Thinking about his dark scheme, even the main character felt like a villain. Suddenly, the The queen's gentle voice spoke again. Actually, your uncle might possess a razor-sharp tongue, but he has a remarkably soft heart. He spent his entire life mastering the blade, making him absolutely terrible at socializing. But I can promise you this one absolute truth. He genuinely wants what is best for your future. The only reason your strict confinement ended early was because he fiercely pleaded with His Majesty. Yet the second you were freed, you instantly caused him massive trouble again. The main character was completely stunned. He never expected his royal uncle had been secretly working so hard to protect him. If that was the hidden truth, then planting that dark inner demon really made him look like the ultimate villain of this story. But the real burning question remained. Why was the uncle treating him so incredibly well? Suddenly, the old scholar Nicolo stepped into the room, and the main character instantly felt a massive headache. He had literally just sent the queen away, and now came this stubborn old scholar, ready to force him to study daily. He only wanted to live as a carefree idle prince. Why did he have to read endless books? Why was tedious studying an absolute requirement? The old scholar coldly declared that a person who refused to study was identical to a pig in a sty. So you are calling me a pig? The main character snapped back. Do not judge me by my lazy appearance. In truth, I already possess all the vital knowledge I need. Studying is useless to me. The old scholar gave a calculating nod. If you absolutely refuse to study, that is perfectly fine. I have an alternative method. Let us debate a few academic questions right now. If you answer correctly, I will personally inform His Majesty. The main character's eyes sparked with immediate competitive interest. You had better keep your bold promise in just a moment. But an instant later, the main character's expression shifts completely. Why are modern books so fascinating? I actually love studying. The old scholar nods with deep satisfaction, casually passing the main character another heavy tome. This text is fascinating and incredibly bold. It frames the dynamic between ruler and loyal subject as a binding contract, a mutual exchange. The sovereign gains military might and economic backing, all in exchange for shielding the masses. The citizens seek an ironclad defense and political peace, repaying their monarch with absolute loyalty. The main character instantly realizes this philosophy fits his tastes perfectly. True alliances demand mutual giving and equal exchange. The old scholar's hidden biases crumble. The rumors are total garbage. This is no rogue eldest prince, but a royal radiating astonishing potential. Dusk soon falls over the estate. The old scholar promptly stands up to leave. I shall return tomorrow. Hearing this, the main character almost bursts into laughter, eagerly urging the master to arrive earlier. But a sudden realization strikes him like lightning. Wait a second, didn't I just get tricked into studying all day? That hateful, crafty old fox. Just like that, several grueling days flash by. During this time, he does absolutely nothing but study while his battered body recovers. Even the training grounds are strictly off limits. Left alone, the main character writhes around his bed like a pathetic worm from sheer, mind-numbing boredom. Even Karl notices the eldest prince losing his mind. But no matter how agonizing the boredom gets, squirming like a worm completely shatters his royal dignity. Suddenly, Adilia arrives to announce that his royal uncle has arrived. The main character's eyes instantly brighten. He never expected the man to recover so fast. But the moment their eyes meet, the main character completely freezes. I take that back. He hasn't overcome the inner demon I planted in him at all. The royal uncle finally breaks the heavy silence, shockingly opening with a sincere apology. Not only did I break my sacred vow, but I also inflicted massive trauma upon you. The main character never sees this apology coming. A heavy guilt instantly surges through his heart. His injuries only exist because his frail body forcefully activated the dragon-slaying hymn. The royal uncle's windblade had not even scratched his skin. Then, he suddenly remembers the queen's chilling words. He had purposely planted a psychological demon in his uncle, making his guilt deepen immensely. The royal uncle speaks again, shattering his racing thoughts. Speak. What is your demand? If you desire my hand or my eye, I will sever it for you. The main character thinks, what the hell would I do with those? It seems this proud warrior truly cannot conquer his inner demon alone. Sighing helplessly, the main character makes his move. Fine, I will give you a push. My wish is simple. Escort me on a journey. The royal uncle frowns deeply. Can you not travel freely now? The main character declares he needs to venture much farther, completely beyond the royal city's walls. The royal uncle immediately rejects it on the spot. Organizing a royal expedition would drain overwhelming amounts of manpower and precious resources. Plus, endless high society banquets are flooding the recent schedule. The main character insists they only need a tiny, elite escort. Fine. Once the preparations are complete, I shall contact you. Leaving those words behind, the royal uncle turns and vanishes. The main character then sharply notices Karl staring an absolute hole through him. The main character feels completely baffled. Why is Karl staring at him so directly? Karl admits he is utterly stunned by the demand. The royal uncle broke his sacred oath. You could have executed that wish far more ruthlessly. The main character smirks, admitting that brutal payback was his original master plan. But seeing that incredibly stubborn old man crumble like this, for some reason I actually feel bad. I just wanted to vent a little anger. Carl feels the shift too. His young master has truly matured into a leader. The main character scoffs at his knight's proud smile. Has it been too long since I disciplined you? Shut your trap. Right on cue, Adilia approaches the main character, carefully holding a sealed letter. This dispatch was personally delivered by Sir Alvin. With a graceful bow, she hands the parchment directly to the main character. Inside, Alvin reports that his recent covert operations have yielded massive results. It seems I shall soon stand by your side once more. I pray that until that fated day, your health remains absolute. Reading those loyal words, the main character finally flashes a long-absent, relieved smile. It is the only shred of good news lately. A few days flash by, and thanks to his uncle's power, the main character's party swiftly launches their expedition. Traveling as a human for the first time, the main character feels incredibly excited. Even during his past life as a sentient sword, he could perceive the outside world, but he had never truly walked this rugged path with his own 2 feet. His manic energy is so intense that even the royal uncle cannot help ordering him to settle down inside the carriage. Then tell me right now, where exactly is our first destination? The royal uncle reveals their first stop is Elven County, the royal family's most massive weapons production hub. The region is overflowing with rich iron veins, historically supplying the realm's highest-ranking nobles with legendary, high-quality magical ore. This territory boasts a world-renowned blacksmith guild. It is no exaggeration to say over half the royal family's weapons are forged right here in Elven County. Hearing this, only 2 words echo in the main character's mind. Absolutely perfect. He was just agonizing over lacking a proper sword. The royal family certainly lacks no fine blades. But ever since that ridiculous, farcical incident where he literally stabbed himself to death, the king and queen flatly refuse him entry to the armory the second they hear he wants to wield a blade again. At that thought, he shoots another glance at his royal uncle. This bargain bin uncle looks rough, but he is surprisingly thoughtful. The uncle shifts, unnerved by the intense stare. Is this brat possessed? They are both grown men, so why keep staring at his face? He emphasizes again that the very first stop of their journey is Elven County. It takes 3 days from the royal capital, and after another 2 days of travel, they will reach their second stop, Iron Lion Castle. They will rest there briefly before preparing to return to the royal capital. Hearing this entire plan makes him feel utterly miserable. This means he must stay cooped up inside this stuffy carriage for 3 straight days, and the man sitting across from him is zero fun. At that depressing thought, the main character sighs completely helplessly. He decides to cultivate his heart of magic to pass this incredibly boring stretch of time. Ever since I forced myself to use the dragon-slaying hymn, my heart of magic feels alarmingly empty. Now that my mental strength is recovered, it is time to refill it. With that determined thought, he prepares to replenish his depleted heart of magic right there inside the carriage. Magic is absolutely everywhere. The cool wind sweeping past the window and even the night's voices outside contain massive numbers of magical particles. But after gathering them for just a short moment, he senses something is terribly wrong. Since when did his heart of magic become this massive? Just then, a glowing system notification window pops up. Because you attempted the extraordinary feat of surpassing your limits and briefly glimpsed a fragment of that powerful will, your heart of magic has completely transformed. As a result, your constitution has significantly changed, allowing your body to carry far more magic. It is detected that you have officially reached the master stage. Your link to the source becomes much more stable, and several crucial authority restrictions have been permanently lifted. Authority Third Eye has been significantly enhanced, and Authority Third Ear has received a massive boost. He immediately feels the surge. He can see and hear much farther now. Today's unexpected power gains are simply overwhelming. Soon, their traveling group finally arrives at Elven County, the legendary capital of smelting. Edgar of the Elven family humbly greets you. Torrance, eldest son of the Elven family, pays his deepest respects to your highness, the prince. To meet your highness is a profound blessing earned over 3 entire lifetimes, and I hope your highness may wash away the journey's weary dust right here. Soon, the prince is warmly welcomed into their grand residence. Instantly, a dazzling array of weapons comes into view. His heart completely sinks. It is expected of a weapon-holy land. But these are mere decorations. If this armory is full of decorative goods like these, then obtaining a truly usable weapon here will definitely not be easy. At that thought, he proposes heading straight to the blacksmith guild for a look. But Edgar shows a deeply troubled expression, and the prince cannot understand what is so difficult. Edgar explains, "The local blacksmiths are all incredibly rough and stubborn. When they are working, even if I, the Lord, visit them, they completely ignore me. The way they speak is as cold and hard as the iron in their hands. So if your highness feels offended by their attitude, please treat it as their intense craftsman's spirit and be lenient with their behavior. The main character nods indifferently. You know me. I am the most tolerant person. Soon, guided by the Lord, he steps into the blacksmith guild. Before his eyes roar blazing furnaces, and in his ears, heavy bellows hiss like a dragon's panting breath. The blacksmith's brutal hammer strikes the iron again and again, sending brilliant sparks spraying through the scorching air. Flames, wind, and brutal hammer blows weave together like an epic war song belonging solely to blacksmiths. The Lord thoughtfully reminds him, the temperature here is extremely high. If your highness feels unwell, please tell me at once. But the main character seems to have entirely lost his soul, staring fixedly ahead. As expected of a pampered prince, he is already baked stupid by the furnace. At that moment, he finally moves. Right now, he does not even know what to say. Having taken human form, he is actually staring at the exact appearance of the very first sword he ever became. Just then, a soft touch on his face pulls him violently back to reality. Adilia asks nervously whether it is far too hot. He shakes his head in denial, but his burning gaze once more locks onto the blacksmith ahead. Right then, Zak's son approaches with the local blacksmiths, bowing deeply to pay their respects. The local lord quickly introduces him. This man runs the entire blacksmith guild. The main character nods coldly. His piercing gaze immediately locks back onto the old blacksmith. Fearing the prince is angry about the missing salute, Zaxon frantically orders the old man to stop working and bow. But the prince silences Zaxon with a single hand, his aura freezing the air. If you value your life, shut up. Never act without my orders again. And the rest of you, your iron is cooling. Keep standing there if you want your furnaces to burn for nothing. Feeling like they dodged a massive execution, the blacksmiths eagerly sprint back to their stations. Silence falls. The prince stands like a statue behind the old master, simply watching him forge. A mysterious, surging emotion grips his heart. Why does this simple hammering resonate so deeply within his very soul? Time vanishes. Before he even realizes it, he watches the old master forge until dusk. Leaving the forge, the prince questions the Lord about this mysterious elder. The Lord reveals he is the absolute greatest swordsmith in the entire region. But a strange madness recently took over him. For months, he endlessly forges legendary blades, only to immediately melt them down. The prince furrows his brow. Are they all failures? The Lord just shakes his head helplessly. To my eyes, every single blade was flawless. I have absolutely no idea why he destroyed such perfect masterpieces. The prince sneers internally. Give me a break. Your idea of perfection is just the flashy trash hanging on your mansion walls. Breaking the silence, the Lord admits he is deeply worried about the master's rapidly fading health. The elder's body is incredibly fragile, yet he has not rested for a single second this entire month. For the next few days, the prince arrives at the glowing forge every morning just to watch the master work. The old man stays dead silent, hammering steel with unyielding focus. The prince matches his silence, standing like a guardian watching destiny unfold. Watching this, the nervous lord finally breathes a deep sigh of relief. When news broke that the notorious eldest prince was visiting, he honestly thought his entire family was completely doomed. Days blur past like an illusion, bringing them to their final night. The old master's hammer continues, striking the blazing steel, never pausing for breath. I truly hoped that before I departed, I would witness the exact moment this legendary blade was born. The prince releases a heavy, soul-deep sigh and turns away into the shadows. Even the clueless lord feels the crushing weight of his disappointment. The lord cannot grasp why the royal cares so intensely. Yet that heavy regret pierces straight through his own chest like a rusty nail. It pushes him beyond his limits, desperately praying the visiting prince gets to witness the Grandmaster's ultimate, finished masterpiece before departing. So at the crack of dawn, he sprints to the prince's chambers, screaming in absolute excitement that the divine sword is finally complete. The prince instantly rushes back to the old blacksmith's workshop. Golden dawn rays wash over the old master. Yet standing in that divine light, his aura feels entirely disconnected from the mortal realm. Suddenly, the master steps forward, gripping the blazing blade, and approaches the prince. From this very dawn, this sword answers to your highness. The prince freezes in pure shock, but the lord looks like he just saw a ghost. I only rushed your work so the prince could admire it. Are you seriously just handing over your life's greatest masterpiece? But the prince is completely deaf to their petty bickering. His hands tremble as they lock around the hilt, utterly hypnotized by the blade's terrifying sharpness and unparalleled divine beauty. He looks up, demanding to know the weapon's true name. The old master smiles faintly, declaring he calls it dusk. The prince's eyes burn with intensity. The dusk you speak of, is it the dying sunset, or the shadows just before dawn? The old blacksmith replies softly, For my fading life, it is dusk, but for your glorious destiny, it is dawn. Stunned by such profound wisdom, The prince opens his mouth to praise the legend. But before a single word escapes, the master completely collapses, hitting the cold dirt. Moving instantly, the prince steps forward and catches him. Right then, Karl steps up, urging that their departure time has arrived. But the prince shakes his head at his royal uncle. Cancel it. I am staying here tonight. Darkness soon falls. The exhausted old master finally opens his weary eyes. Your Highness. The moment you stood behind me, fate itself began shaping this blade. I did not simply offer it to you. This mythical sword chose you. But hearing this, the prince only shakes his head with a mysterious smirk. Bending down close, he whispers a deeply hidden secret into the elder's ear. The old master's eyes blast wide open, his body violently trembling in pure shock. So that is the terrifying truth. Everything connects. The elder gasps. Please, may I borrow dusk for just one moment? Though confused by the request, the prince handed his blade over. The old man whispered, Your Highness, may this weapon become as legendary as you. With those final words, the master blacksmith slowly closed his eyes forever. If his chest hadn't completely stopped moving, his peaceful smile made it look as though he had simply drifted into deep sleep. The prince's heart grew heavy. It absolutely will, he vowed softly. After giving the Grand Master a proper burial, their group finally resumed their journey. Suddenly, the local lord blocked their path, insisting on presenting a second blade. While it could never rival a soul-forged masterpiece, this replacement was still a top-tier magical weapon. Hearing this unexpected offer, the prince gladly accepted it. A soul-bound artifact is already priceless. I never imagined you would generously gift me another magic blade on top of it. When I return to the capital, I will absolutely sing your praises directly to the king. The lord froze, completely dumbstruck. He only offered the second weapon to trade back the soul-forged sword. He forced a painful smile instead. Serving the royal family is my absolute duty. Soon, the prince's group continued their journey. Having missed his royal uncle for several days, the prince curiously asked where he had been hiding all this time. His uncle revealed he was completing a secret royal decree, warning that their strict schedule was severely delayed. We must reach Iron Lion Castle immediately, he ordered. From here on out, you are riding a horse. The prince weakly admitted he had zero riding skills. His uncle stared in utter disbelief. What kind of noble knight cannot ride a horse? Was this even acceptable? The prince felt totally helpless. In his past life, he was literally just a sword. What weapon knows equestrian skills? So, guided by his uncle and Karl, the main character began his brutal horsemanship training. The entire journey consisted of him vomiting or fighting the urge to hurl. Thankfully, he somehow survived the brutal ride to Iron Lion Castle. Gazing at the towering fortress walls, the prince had to admit its sheer magnificence. At that very moment, a disciplined knight battalion stood ready to welcome him, with Alvin waiting quietly in the back. A mischievous spark flashed in the prince's eyes as he approached. But surprisingly, Alvin made the very first move. I finally see you again, Your Highness. Every single second here felt like an eternity, and today my wish is granted. The instant those sweet words dropped, the surrounding knights mentally exploded. Damn this rogue prince. He actually stole the precious flower of the Iron Lions. Suddenly, a terrifying chill shot down the prince's spine. He assumed it was Adilia reacting violently to the knights' blazing hostility. But was that really the truth? Seeing Adilia finally calm down under his soothing touch, the prince brushed it off and turned his focus to Alvin. Come on, let us go do something entertaining. If your friends want to join, even better. He confidently led everyone toward the training grounds. His real reason for visiting was incredibly simple. I want to witness the Iron Lion's legendary swordsmanship. Who is your strongest fighter? The knights exchanged nervous glances, but nobody stepped up. The prince sighed. Do not let my royal status scare you. I swear upon the Leonberg family name. No one will face consequences. Yet still, total silence. He smirked. So the mighty Iron Lion Knights are nothing but empty rumors. I truly never expected this elite battalion to be utter cowards. That ultimate insult shattered their pride. The knights exploded into pure rage as Dale stomped forward, vowing to smash the prince's teeth into the dirt. Then let us find out whose teeth will decorate this floor. With a cocky grin, the prince curled his finger in a taunting gesture. Humiliated and furious, Dale unleashed a terrifying battle cry and charged. The prince casually raised his blade to block. The sheer shockwave of the impact instantly gave Dale severe internal injuries. A casual flick sent the knight flying across the arena. A demonic smirk crept onto the prince's face. Next, who else? Seeing their comrade knocked senseless in one strike, the remaining knights boiled over with murderous intent. Paul drew his blade. I am your next opponent. Do not think you are invincible just because you won. Dale only joined a year ago. I have been here for 3 years. But 1 second later, a casual upward slash sent Paul flying into the dirt. Then they attacked in droves. Whether they had 5 years, 8 years, or 10 years of experience. A single devastating strike swept them away like trash. Even the prince felt completely disappointed. If they wanted a fight, why waste breath on useless trash talk? Within minutes, the entire order of training knights lay groaning on the ground. He honestly never expected these trainees to be this incredibly weak. It seemed he desperately needed to find the official knights instead. Craving a real battle, the prince locked his predatory gaze onto Alvin. In just a few days you will leave this place by my side. Alvin's heart soared. She answered without hesitation. Wherever your highness goes, I shall follow. Those devoted words made a certain knight lose his temper. I hear your highness enjoys a good gamble. Then let us place a wager to liven things up, shall we? If I claim victory, Alvin remains right here. The prince's expression darkened in a flash. Alvin was not some cheap prize to be wagered. He immediately signaled Carl to present his magic sword. Let us bet on something else. Win, and this enchanted blade is yours. The knight froze dead in his tracks. A magical blade of such an absolute legendary tier? Alvin never expected the prince to stake such a treasure for her. This will not do, she panicked. The prince instantly cut her off. Enough. No matter how magnificent this sword is, it cannot compare to you. You are infinitely more precious than any mere weapon. Alvin's cheeks ignited with a furious blush. She never dreamed she held such massive weight in his highness's heart. Nom shattered the tender moment. Then it is settled. I am a full knight of the Iron Lion Knights, mere steps from completing my third chain. I pray your highness does not accuse me of bullying the weak. The prince let out a sharp laugh. Big words, but are you not still a mere double chain? Tell me, what can you possibly offer? Fury surged through Nom. He hoisted his mighty longsword high. This is the 17th blade forged by an absolute master swordsmith. This shall be my stake. The prince nodded in cold satisfaction. The fierce duel commenced. Though your highness has strayed from the righteous path, I will strike with my all. The prince instantly understood the hidden insult. Nom was openly mocking the heart of magic. Then I will let you witness firsthand if this is truly the wrong path. With that, the prince fully awakened his heart of magic. An explosive aura surged across the arena, sending an oppressive shockwave straight into their souls. Adilia, watch closely from here on out. Adilia stood entirely bewildered. Why had he suddenly called out to her? Because this is the path you will walk from now on. The destiny you must embrace. In that exact second, Adelia's dormant magic erupted in fierce resonance. I will not miss a single detail. Meanwhile, the royal uncle tracked down the commander of the Iron Lion Knights. Securing this formidable legion's support was the ultimate goal of his journey. The commander flatly rejected him. Absolutely impossible. Every single prince outshines the eldest prince by a mile, aside from the fourth prince, who holds zero ambition for the throne. Backing literally any other royal candidate would be infinitely more valuable than wasting resources on him. And did you not force him to this desperate edge? You are his royal uncle. Had you offered even a shred of support back then, he would never have fallen into this isolated, utterly helpless state. You washed your hands of him yourself. Yet now you crawl here demanding my allegiance? That is nothing but a fool's pipe dream. The royal uncle fell dead, silent. It was true. The eldest prince carried his own deep flaws. But if I had guided him instead of assigning blame, would he have walked a brighter path? But what did I do back then? I turned my back and walked away in bitter disappointment. Later, I was even served his deadly poisoned wine. After slowly purging that cheap, unknown venom with magic, only icy indifference remained in my heart. But one day, he miraculously changed. He subjected himself to hellish training, his power skyrocketing with each passing day. The commander's icy voice shattered the memory. I vividly remember your own exact words. The eldest prince must never be allowed to take the throne. The royal uncle slowly nodded. Yes, I said that. But please, give him one final chance. Let him stand on the exact same battleground as his brothers. With a heavy sigh, the royal uncle bowed deeply before the stubborn commander. Suddenly, the oak doors violently crashed open. Emergency! The eldest prince has engaged our knights in brutal combat. Rushing down the halls, the commander scoffed, reassuring the panicked uncle. Relax. Nam knows his limits. He won't critically injure his highness. The royal uncle's eyes flashed with chilling terror. I am not worried about the prince's safety. I fear his highness knows no restraint. He might accidentally obliterate your elite knight. The commander mentally scoffed. The old man must be completely drunk to spew such sheer, delusional nonsense. But an instant later, Nam's battered body blasted through the air, violently cratering right at their feet. The commander's pupils shrank in utter disbelief. A deafening shockwave of cheers detonated from the arena. I cannot believe it. His highness claimed victory again. The commander's brain practically short-circuited. Wait, what do they mean by again? Just moments prior, the clash between the prince and Nam had violently kicked off. Nam held absolutely nothing back, instantly igniting his ultimate aura. Yet the prince needed just one devastating strike to send him flying. The remaining full knights can no longer sit still, stepping forward one after another to challenge the main character. He accepts, but under one condition: everyone must bring an equivalent stake. With that, he faces the relentless strikes of knight after knight. But before long, every single full knight in the entire arena is brutally beaten to the ground. The trainees have never seen a monster-class powerhouse like this before. The longer they watch, the more their blood boils with pure excitement. They erupt into wild cheers, completely forgetting this outsider came here to crush their own hall. Suddenly, a system notification flashes. He has obtained the duel skill, instantly skyrocketing all the way to the legendary transcendent rank in one go. His eyes light up immediately. He truly never expected to stumble upon such a massive, game-changing reward here today. But a second later, his stamina completely bottoms out, and he collapses straight toward the hard ground. Just in time, someone catches him from the side. "Your Highness's absolute mastery is truly admirable." The moment those words echo out, the entire arena erupts into deafening cheers once again. When the hallmaster and the royal uncle finally arrive, they witness this awe-inspiring scene with their very own eyes. Even the hallmaster, who utterly despised the prince just moments ago, cannot help but applaud and shower him with endless praise. He even tells him not to worry about any lingering grudges. Deep down, these fierce warriors are simple at heart. The royal uncle steps up. For a knight, an open and honorable defeat is far more valuable than a cowardly victory. If both sides give their absolute all, victory and defeat lose their meaning. The surrounding knights nod repeatedly, though they admit Nam will definitely be furious. After all, he lost the treasured sword he bragged about for years, forced to hand it straight over to his highness. A gentle smile crosses his face. "Ever since I came into this world in human form, I truly thought everything had changed. But at least one thing has remained exactly the same from beginning to end. The blazing spirit of true knighthood is still being passed down." Soon after, the prince's group finally sets out on their journey home. He smiles, signaling for the massive crowd to stop seeing them off. Then, his sharp gaze shifts toward Count Havdan beside him. "Please keep everything that happened today an absolute secret." Havdan stares back, completely confused. "If this goes public, wouldn't it guarantee your highness the crown prince title?" Hearing this, a wicked smirk spreads across his face. "If word gets out, I fear that brat will just surrender immediately." The group travels relentlessly until nightfall paints the sky. Only then does the royal uncle command them to set up camp for the night. He notices Alvin acting strangely the entire day. Suddenly, Carl steps up to volunteer for night patrol, a request the prince immediately approves. As Carl leaves, his sharp gaze locks onto Alvin again. He brushes it off, assuming she is simply still not used to this grueling lifestyle. With that thought in mind, he heads back to his tent to finally catch some rest. But Adilia is already waiting inside, leaving the main character utterly speechless. He clearly ordered her to stop acting like a lowly maid for him anymore. Adilia freezes, terrified she has somehow displeased her lord. He simply lets out a heavy sigh. "Leave for now. I really need to rest. Way too many things have happened these past few days." He is completely exhausted. Plus, the Iron Lion Knights are nothing like he imagined. Honestly, the swordsmanship talent of most knights here is not particularly outstanding. In his past life, men like that would never reach the intermediate level. They would die as nameless foot soldiers, completely forgotten by history. Yet within the Iron Lion Knights, mere kids with garbage talent are already breaking into the realm of true swordsmanship experts. Could this insane growth be due to the magic chain? If so, that mysterious artifact truly possesses terrifying merits. But if that is the terrifying truth, then geniuses with truly exceptional talent might be forever locked out of the transcendent realm. A heavy sigh escapes his lips. It seems he still understands far too little about the secrets of this era. It is decided. Starting today, I will uncover the absolute truth of this world. Just then, the royal uncle barges into his tent. "I am truly glad you are finally thinking this way. If you just keep pushing your limits, I believe your ultimate dream will surely become reality." The prince blinks, completely bewildered. What kind of dream is he talking about? How does he not know about his own dream? The royal uncle chuckles inwardly, assuming the kid is just playing dumb again. "You achieved what the other princes failed to do, effortlessly winning over the fierce Iron Lion Knights. Are you seriously telling me you are not paving your bloody path to the throne?" The main character freezes, absolutely stunned on the spot. This old man's imagination is running dangerously wild. He literally just wanted to enjoy a good, bone-crushing fight. But the royal uncle leans in closer. "Do you still remember the wager we made back then?" The main character stares back, completely puzzled. "You mean our wager over crushing the third prince?" The royal uncle clarifies, "The real bet was taking down a double-chain knight. Now that you have achieved the impossible, I will finally honor my solemn vow. From this moment onward, I, Valbalikard, Count of the Realm and Commander of the Third Legion, formally declare my absolute backing for the eldest prince's ascension. Your Highness." Place your complete trust in my hands. I will personally carve your path to the ultimate throne. Hearing this overwhelming declaration, the protagonist feels physically sick. When did he ever claim he actually desired the crown? Soon, the protagonist's party marches back to the capital, while the royal uncle's explosive announcement plunges the entire royal city into absolute frenzy. At the same time, countless powerful figures step forward to publicly back the protagonist. Naturally, most of these opportunists are merely chasing the royal uncle's terrifying shadow. Consequently, the paranoid king deploys heavily armed guards around the protagonist. Fearing the protagonist's chronic illness might violently return, the king casually dispatches a whole swarm of personal maids. The suffocating attention practically chokes the protagonist. Cannot he just banish every last one of them away? Carl coldly reminds him they are the king's direct spies. Even if His Highness seizes the crown, these women will never bow to his authority. The protagonist quickly forces a desperate compromise. At the very least, completely banish them from his immediate sight. Their endless chattering is maddening. After an agonizing eternity, the grand estate finally sinks into a peaceful silence. He exhales deeply, savoring this incredibly rare, hard-won tranquility. However, that fragile peace shatters as the arrogant third prince violently kicks the doors open. The protagonist honestly cannot fathom what this delusional bastard wants from him at a time like this. The third prince sneers, "You truly excel at playing the fool. Secretly mastering swordsmanship under our uncle was one insult, but flaunting this pathetic illusion of grand ambition crosses the line. I originally meant to spare your fragile dignity, but pulling a stunt like this? How can I possibly tolerate such betrayal?" The protagonist listens with a heavy scowl. This spoiled brat keeps spewing absolute garbage. You have made a fatal miscalculation. Do you understand? I will personally extract an agonizingly painful price for your deceit. The protagonist assumes this arrogant kid has completely lost his mind. Otherwise, there is no logical excuse for spouting such monumental nonsense. After aggressively kicking the third prince out, the protagonist furiously confronts the royal uncle, definitively declaring his absolute lack of interest in the throne. And before making world-shattering decisions, could he at least consult him first? Do you have any concept of the catastrophic mess your little announcement caused me? The imposing royal uncle simply replies, I see the fear in your eyes, but are you truly blind to the gruesome fate awaiting a firstborn who loses the war for succession? You may pause now. This game never sleeps. If you require time to prepare, I shall grant it, but engrave this unyielding truth into your bones. Only when your heart stops beating will your divine birthright to the crown finally vanish. The protagonist sighs in profound exhaustion. Who would actually crave a useless trinket like the mortal throne? My ultimate obsession has always been the absolute, unfathomable power that shatters the boundaries of transcendence. However, as the lavish banquet erupts, his iron resolve flickers. Hordes of elite nobles swarm the halls due to Valbalicard's endorsement, exposing the terrifying depths of the commander's political roots. Even the protagonist marvels internally. Truly, this is the monstrous, mountain-like presence of the North's Grand Commander. Yet, the sickening aura radiating from these corrupt nobles is overwhelmingly absurd. Their greedy souls drip with sinister karma, forged from merciless slaughter and endless plundering. Still, a dangerous few hidden in the crowd actually warrant his attention. Driven by this instinct, the protagonist approaches Tyler, instantly causing the terrified man to break into cold, nervous sweat. He simply cannot fathom why a royal prince, already drowning in monumental daily duties, would remember a pathetic, low-ranking noble from a forgotten dirt village. Is His Highness possessed by some demon? Otherwise, why pierce him with such an intense glare? Suddenly, a guard demands absolute silence. The Burgundy Empire's ambassador, Marquis Burgundy Mai, graces us. As the echoing announcement drops, a disgustingly bloated noble swaggers into the grand hall and actually flashes the protagonist a sickeningly sweet smile. It truly has been quite a while. The protagonist's inner voice turns to ice. Indeed, an eternity has passed, but not between you and me. It has been 400 years since my closest comrade, and I waged an endless bloody war to completely annihilate our absolute mortal enemy, the Burgundy Empire. That cursed nation carved unforgivable scars into this world, and now this filth dares stand before my eyes. Suddenly, a panicked noble violently shatters his glass. The sharp noise instantly snaps the protagonist out of a dark, all-consuming fury. The trembling man desperately pleads, "Please forgive my unforgivable clumsiness, Your Highness. I was simply too desperate to offer you my absolute highest respects." But the protagonist offers zero reaction, instead locking his deadly, piercing gaze onto Marquis Munti standing nearby. Marquis Munti freezes like terrified prey. "Why are you glaring at me? I did not spill the damn drink." Instantly, a suffocating, deathly silence swallows the entire hall. After a tense moment, the main character decides to change his clothes first. He then asks Carl about the arrogant noble who just bumped into him. Carl replies, That is Marquis Billy. Hearing this, the main character's lips curl into a deeply intrigued smile. It seems they are not all rotten to the core after all. He actually pulled me back from the edge of my rage. Soon after, he changes into a fresh set of clothes. Hearing the news, the royal uncle urgently rushes over to see him. Marquis Billy claims you were about to cause absolute chaos at the banquet. Looking at your dark expression, he is not exactly lying. Now tell me, what exactly are you planning? The main character quickly explains that he is not acting recklessly. I simply do not understand. Why is the corrupt Burgundy family allowed to flaunt their dark power in the very heart of our kingdom? Even the respect those nobles show him feels far more genuine than the loyalty they offer the actual royal family. So I am genuinely curious. How exactly did this country rot to such a pathetic state? The royal uncle sighs helplessly, admitting the reason is quite simple. In the past, the kingdom fiercely resisted the brutal invasions of the empire. Every single knight stepped forward, devoting their ultimate strength. But as time passed, the empire grew terrifyingly strong, and the crushing gap in power completely widened beyond repair. In the end, the empire became an unstoppable superpower, leaving the broken kingdom with absolutely no choice but to bow its head. The moment those heavy words fall, the main character's heart shakes violently. Is it all because of the lost hymns? Though the kingdom is just a small nation at the continent's edge, it once possessed ancient hymns capable of crushing a mighty empire. Since its founding, these powerful legacies were continuously accumulated and flawlessly refined. Some were ordinary, while others were extraordinary. They manifested as heroic tales or even ancient legends. Sometimes, they were even revered as divine myths. Those were the legendary martial saint hymns. But now, the kingdom has lost them all. At that realization, the main character sighs softly, his tone dead calm but freezing cold. I have changed my mind. I have decided to take the throne and see if I can become the true king of this country. Perhaps I will regret this later. But this is my absolute destiny. After all, half of this country belongs to me. With those bold words, he returns to the banquet hall alongside his uncle. Only when the arrogant nobles hear the royal uncle has arrived do they reluctantly bow and salute. Seeing their blatant disrespect, the main character laughs inwardly. If they treat the royal uncle like trash, their treatment of Marquis Billy makes perfect sense. Back in the chaotic early days of the newborn kingdom, the first king probably faced identical scenes of mockery. After all, he was nothing more than a humble country boy from a remote mountain village. Everyone looked down on him from the very bottom of their rotten hearts. But in the end, he conquered them all, just like I will. These pathetic nobles have not changed at all. From beginning to end, they have been completely blind. With that dark thought, he instantly activates another ancient hymn. The system window flashes red, desperately warning him about his frail constitution. His body can barely handle the strain. But compared to the terrifying dragon-slaying hymn, the pain of this aura is still somewhat bearable. When the final verse of the hymn ends, he appears before the stunned crowd wearing a radiant crown. The arrogant nobles stare in absolute, trembling disbelief. He smirks to himself, thinking the dramatic effect is actually quite brilliant. He is just about to press his advantage and drop some harsh words when terrifying energy spikes nearby, making his very soul recoil in horror. His heart instantly plummets into the abyss. Across all of history, there are only a handful of monsters who can trigger such pure, instinctive dread. So why does it have to be this absolute madwoman from the elf race? The world foolishly praises elves as God's most flawless creations. But he knows the dark truth. Beneath those angelic, perfect appearances hide psychotic hearts that are twisted to the absolute extreme. They will lure you into their trap with breathtaking beauty, only to deal a fatal blow when your guard is completely down. And this terrifying woman is a classic, obsessive yandere. But in the very next second, he forces his racing heart to calm down. I am not a sword anymore. Even if I recite the hymn she knows so well, she cannot possibly recognize that I am Gruhan. Sigru looks at the main character with piercing curiosity. Have we ever met before? There is a deeply familiar aura about you, as if we once shared an intimate connection. He never expected her monstrous intuition to be this sharp. He quickly explains that she is actually the very first elf he has ever met in his entire life. Sigru's flawless face instantly twists in pure disbelief. When foolish humans meet elves for the first time, they typically only have two predictable reactions. The first is to become hopelessly captivated by their unearthly beauty. The second is that absolute masters of martial arts become fiercely wary. But you claim this is your first time seeing me, yet you are not captivated by me at all. And as far as I can sense, you definitely have not reached the legendary realm of a martial powerhouse either. Backed into a corner, he forces a smile, claiming his tastes are just special. Hearing that excuse, absolute disgust immediately floods Sigru's face. I respect everyone's tastes. Leaving those words behind, she turns and walks away. Only then does the main character exhale a massive sigh of relief. That means she will stop tormenting him, right? But mere days later, he is left completely and utterly dumbfounded. The queen is actually actively choosing royal consorts for him. But seriously, what is the deal with this candidate still sucking on a baby pacifier? And this candidate too? One single glance screams absolute trouble. The prince simply cannot fathom how his fate derailed like this. Meanwhile, the queen stands right beside him, desperately trying to passionately persuade him. For a royal spouse, it is perfectly enough as long as she brings the absolute backing of a truly distinguished family. The moment those words drop, a guard's loud announcement booms from outside. Immediately after, an elite elven delegation led by Sigru dramatically appears before the queen. I am Sigru of the esteemed Misoto family. I offer my most sincere greetings to the deeply beautiful Queen Margaret. The queen frowns in deep confusion. An elven delegation has not graced this kingdom in ages. So, what on earth is she actually doing here? Sigru smoothly replies that she simply heard the queen is choosing a royal consort for the prince. And naturally, I am a high elf. In human terms, that flawlessly guarantees I possess a distinguished, noble lineage. Most importantly, my age perfectly matches His Highness, the prince. The main character freezes right on the spot. Is that something any sane human could say? You are nearly 1,000 years old. Meanwhile, this body of mine just turned 16. At that very moment, Sigru speaks up again. In absolute truth, the exact moment I laid eyes on His Highness, I felt our destined fates fiercely intertwine. A freezing chill pierces the prince's wildly beating heart. Elves never lie about destiny or emotions, and that single sentence just flawlessly confirmed both. She genuinely wants to become my destined consort. Realizing this absolute disaster, the main character can no longer sit still. He simply cannot comprehend this mad woman's twisted endgame. Without hesitation, he aggressively drags Sigru away from the chaotic scene. Slamming the door to an empty room, the main character violently demands to know her true, hidden purpose. I only wish to improve the fragile relationship between my family and this kingdom. What dark ulterior motive could possibly exist? The prince shoots back with icy venom. Do you truly expect anyone to believe that nonsense? A blood-soaked butcher who handles your family's dirty work for centuries is suddenly claiming to peacefully improve relations? Spit out the truth right now. Are you here to investigate, or to execute a ruthless judgment? A dangerous, playfully wicked smile slowly creeps across Sigru's elegant face. It heavily seems my very first impression was dead right. You truly are a fascinating anomaly. But how exactly do you know my darkest secrets? A paralyzing terror grips the prince's racing heart. He cannot exactly admit. You once forcefully dragged me into your bed countless times. Furthermore, her overwhelming power absolutely eclipses her past self. She is terrifyingly strong enough to glimpse the history carved into his fate, instantly sensing their deeply intertwined past. However, for the absolute sake of surviving the second half of his agonizing life, he fiercely cannot back down now. He absolutely refuses to let this sadistic mad woman relentlessly toy with him all night ever again. Suddenly, Sigru slowly whispers, "Since you clearly know I am a butcher, you should also know exactly what happens when prey remains stubbornly silent." The prince replies with terrifying calm, "I know perfectly well. But I also know the deadly consequences of talking way too much before a butcher. I revealed those dark secrets solely to crush your sudden, dangerous obsession with my fate." Having dropped that massive bombshell, the main character stares down Sigru with unshakable confidence, thinking this is exactly enough to fully spark her dangerous curiosity. As long as he transforms into the rare prey she desperately wishes to slowly savor, his total victory in this deadly round remains secure. Right on cue, Sigru closes the dangerous distance. She quietly yet intensely presses him to reveal his true identity. I am nothing but a pitiful child, completely abandoned by my own father. Yet, I will definitively rise by force. If you are curious, watch closely. Hearing those defiant words, a dramatic spark of revelation suddenly ignites within Sigru's eyes. No wonder the family dispatched a supreme elder like me for such a trivial, boring task. In this exact moment, I finally understand. The prince has absolutely zero clue what she suddenly understands. Again, of course, everything is purely because of you. He stands utterly speechless. Over these long centuries, this mad woman gained godlike power, but her broken brain never changed one single bit. Forget this absolute nonsense. As long as I achieve my ultimate goal, that is absolutely enough. Seizing the moment, the main character aggressively grabs Sigru's hand, marching straight before the queen. I have decided to officially become engaged to Sigru. Just wait, Sigru. You incredibly wicked woman. I will use this engagement to make you respect me, worship me, and fall hopelessly in love, until you become absolutely unable to let go. And then, for everything you inflicted upon me before, I will make you pay back in full with massive interest. This explosive news quickly reaches the third prince. At this exact moment, the third prince violently trembles with pure rage. He utterly fails to comprehend what heaven-defying luck his worthless older brother stumbled into. Claiming the Iron Lion's precious flower was infuriating enough, but then their royal uncle suddenly announced absolute support. And now, even that elite elf is his official fiancé? Damn it. I was the one who loved her first. The very moment my eyes met hers, I had already named our future children. Since you chose to be heartless, my useless older brother, then do not blame your third brother for showing absolutely no mercy. When the duel arrives, I will crush you into pieces right before her eyes. I will obliterate any interest she ever had in you. Time rapidly shifts to the fated day of the duel. Hilda, the esteemed commander of the Silver Lion Knights, steps forward to declare the rules. Now, your highnesses, please raise your blades. The main character sighs inwardly. This old man is finally done talking. But seriously, why is the crowd this massive? Drawing his blade, the third prince sneers. I was the one who gathered this massive audience. I wanted to ensure your so-called heroic bearing, my dear older brother, goes down in history. I specially invited all these spectators to witness this. Do not disappoint them. The main character just yawns. You really talk too much, kid. I cannot recall a single moment where you actually stayed quiet. The third prince instantly erupts into blazing fury. Once this duel ends, we will see if you can still talk so tough. With that, he raises his sword and charges straight forward. The main character merely lets out a soft sigh. I was only joking, little brother. Why are you in such a desperate rush? I had actually planned to play with you just a little bit longer. The moment those words drop, he stops hiding his true power. His explosive second-stage aura is instantly unleashed for all to see. The entire arena falls deathly silent. In a single, devastating strike, the main character completely crushes the third prince, sending him collapsing to the dirt, instantly unconscious. Hilda, who had previously been the main character's strict instructor, stands completely paralyzed in shock. He had taught this boy for years, and he always seemed like pure trash. Yet, after training with the royal uncle for barely a few months, how on earth did he become this monstrous? He just effortlessly annihilated the third prince, a swordsmanship prodigy hailed as the absolute strongest below the third chain. The main character merely chuckles coldly. The so-called strongest below the third chain. At the end of the day, he is still just a second chain novice. Now, announce the results. Hilda swallows down his rising fear. As the arbitrator and witness of this sacred duel, I rule the third prince unable to continue. The ultimate victor is the eldest prince. This shocking news violently sweeps through the kingdom, sparking an absolute uproar. The arrogant nobles who faithfully backed the third prince are left utterly baffled by his devastating defeat. Was he not supposed to be the invincible prodigy below the third chain? Yet, he was flawlessly crushed by the kingdom's famously useless eldest prince. A few days pass. The arrogant third prince, who had been knocked out cold in a single blow, finally snaps awake. The crushing memory of losing face before those elite nobles hits him like a speeding truck. Boiling with rage, he immediately orders his royal guards to prepare his armor so he can reclaim his shattered pride. But a trembling night reveals that right after the duel, the eldest prince had already fled the capital alongside the royal uncle. The scene shifts to our main character. The royal uncle simply cannot grasp why they are rushing north so desperately. Could they not just rest for a few more days? Because there is absolutely nothing left for me to accomplish in this boring capital. Plus, I refuse to waste time wooing nobles who disrespect their own nation's ruler, yet shamelessly bow and scrape before the glorious empire. Honestly, I feel that rough soldiers and loyal knights suit my style much better than stuck-up nobles. The royal uncle warns that while soldiers lack the scheming minds of nobles, winning their fierce loyalty will not be easy either. The main character merely brushes off his worries. I truly believe that as long as we bleed and roll in the mud together, genuine brotherhood will naturally bloom. Even so, I still think you are rushing things way too much. But the main character has a massive headache he cannot publicly share. What am I supposed to tell him? That my absolute biggest reason for running away so fast is to escape from Sigru? If I do not leave right now, this very body will probably be utterly ruined by her. Before that nightmare happens, I absolutely must grow stronger. This capital city is way too peaceful. My strength has completely hit a bottleneck here. But the brutal northern battlefield is entirely different. It is an ancient testing ground for humanity's limits. The very cradle where legendary heroic hymns are born. Out there in the blood-soaked snow, I can truly temper my body and sharpen my killing edge. That is my true destiny. Just then, the royal uncle points out they have finally reached the Blade Mountains, the frozen border their family has guarded for generations. Do you want to step back inside the warm carriage and hide for a bit? You look like you are freezing to death. The main character firmly replies that he must conquer this biting cold immediately. Besides, that stubborn old man is shamelessly taking up an entire carriage by himself. I honestly cannot comprehend why that frail scholar fiercely insisted on following us to a deadly northern war zone. the scholar simply claims his life's greatest desire is to witness the brutal North firsthand. And I guarantee, the epic tale I write this time will definitely captivate Your Highness. But you must promise this old man one thing, he whispered. Read it alone in the dead of night. Otherwise, my lifelong reputation will be completely shattered. Saying that, he cast a highly suggestive glance toward Alvin walking up ahead. Catching their hushed words, Alvin's face flushed crimson. The protagonist, assuming the biting frost was freezing her cheeks, gently suggested she take shelter and rest inside the carriage. Alvin instantly stood tall, answering with righteous pride. I am a proud knight. How could a knight seek temporary comfort? Let me march beside you on foot. The protagonist nodded, deeply satisfied by her fiery spirit. Taking her in as his personal knight was definitely the right choice. She truly had the heart of a warrior. Compared to her blazing resolve, the others were pathetic. Most still sulked bitterly over being dragged into this frozen wasteland by absolute royal decree. If only Carl was here. He would whip this miserable group into perfect shape. But thanks to that stubborn old man, Carl couldn't travel north. It made no sense. This body was literally his own flesh and blood. Yes, the past version of him committed unforgivable sins, but he had spent these last few months desperately doing everything to redeem his dark legacy. Yet, the king's hostility remained brutally excessive. Was there some hidden, dark secret behind all this that he still didn't know? Suddenly, the royal uncle shouted a grim warning. A deadly blizzard was approaching. They needed to double their pace immediately. Even with their forced march, the drifting snow rapidly morphed into a catastrophic blizzard. The roaring winds entirely drowned out the voices of anyone standing right beside them. The only sound was the royal uncle's magic amplified voice roaring out, "Abandon the carriages, keep only your war horses. March forward on foot." The protagonist quickly helped Adilia step down from the freezing carriage, earning a soft, incredibly grateful whisper of thanks. Suddenly, the protagonist spotted his knights desperately bracing themselves against the raging blizzard, with their massive shields raised high. "You utter fools," he roared in absolute fury. The struggling knights froze in pure confusion, totally clueless about what fatal mistake they had just made. If you hold shields that massive, the violent winds will catch you like ship sails. Drop every single burden except your swords. Form up and march forward in one line. With that order, he signaled the hulking warrior beside him to lead the vanguard and crush a path forward. The grim procession battered its way through the relentless snowstorm. While this tactic significantly reduced the crushing wind pressure, surviving the freezing march was still an absolute nightmare. Before long, one exhausted knight reached his absolute breaking point, collapsing directly into the snow. Instantly, the protagonist shoved through the shivering crowd, grabbed the fallen knight, and hoisted him effortlessly onto his own shoulder. The surrounding soldiers watched in complete shock. A royal prince, personally carrying a broken soldier. Don't just stand there staring. Move! At long last, Winter Fortress, the legendary stronghold of the royal uncle's bloodline, pierced through the horizon. Instantly, the howling blizzard vanished. The protagonist almost burst into bitter laughter, feeling like the thieving heavens had just mocked him for absolute sport. It refused to stop earlier or later. But the exact second they arrived, the skies cleared. Suddenly, breaking from the frozen crowd, the royal uncle stepped proudly before the colossal fortress gates. With absolute dignity, he slammed his fist over his heart, saluting as the lawful ruler of Balakard and supreme commander of the kingdom's 3rd Legion. I hereby formally welcome the arrival of the eldest prince. Welcome to the impregnable Winter Fortress. Winter Fortress existed solely to crush the vicious monsters entrenched deep within the Blade Mountains. Battered endlessly by catastrophic weather, terrified soldiers never dared to return here twice. Meanwhile, arrogant central nobles constantly gambled on the stronghold's fragile political worth. But for those born in Balakard, holding this frozen hellscape was their lifelong duty. It was the blazing core of their ancestral pride. Commander Vincent Alucard was the fiercest embodiment of that unshakable northern pride. From today onward, I relinquish my duties as acting commander and return to my rightful post leading the Ranger Corps. Father, to see you return home completely safely brings me true joy. The protagonist never expected the royal uncle to have such a mature son, yet they looked incredibly alike, especially that fiercely stubborn jawline capturing attention at first glance. The royal uncle fell utterly speechless. Surely, you didn't think I died without an heir. He immediately introduced the prince to Vincent. This is His Royal Highness Prince Adrian, the eldest prince. Instantly, every toxic rumor regarding the notorious protagonist flooded straight through Vincent's mind. Yet, he forced a perfectly respectful salute. I, Vincent of the Balakard bloodline, commander of the Ranger Corps, formally pay my absolute respects to His Highness. In absolute truth, Vincent seethed with disgust. He couldn't fathom why his father escorted this worthless rogue here. Winter Fortress was a sacred stronghold where true warriors gladly sacrificed their lives for pure conviction. It was certainly no playground for a banished royal rogue who merely wandered around entertaining useless women. Just then, a nearby soldier respectfully suggested taking the protagonist to tour the massive fortress. The exact second the protagonist departed, Vincent's patience snapped. He furiously demanded his father explain what this absolute insult meant. The royal uncle declared his mind was made up. He would become Adrian's sworn protector and remain in Balakard for now. Vincent froze, utterly stunned by the sudden declaration. Hadn't the older man just called the kid completely useless? Even His Majesty considered him a massive headache. Why are you doing this, father? The royal uncle offered no immediate answer. Instead, his piercing gaze shifted toward the main character, who was preparing to tour Winter Fortress. People change in the end. I ask only one thing of you. Do not look at this boy through the lens of prejudice. Once you witness his true potential, you will understand. Soon, the party reached the Great Hall, where the royal uncle demanded a status report on the monster subjugation. Vincent reported he had been personally leading strike teams to cull their numbers, yet several danger zones remained completely overrun. Now that father has returned to the front lines, it is time for us to strike back. However, one specific red zone remains a massive headache. A horde of nearly 100 orcs has claimed the mountain entrance. A force that massive cannot be wiped out by ranger arrows alone. So I am gathering fortress knights. Suddenly, the main character stepped forward. Leave this raid to me. A sudden chill crawled down everyone's spine, and the panicked room frantically scrambled to talk him out of it. The savage orcs of the Blade Mountains were no ordinary monsters. If this mission failed, a catastrophic bloodbath would rain down upon them. But the main character locked eyes with the royal uncle. A silent, heavy understanding passed between the two men in an instant. The older man then demanded Vincent's intel regarding the orc horde's numbers and raw combat strength. Vincent firmly replied, "At present, we have confirmed no more than 20 of those beasts. We haven't spotted any elite warriors or shamans, but we cannot assume they are absent." Hearing the deadly odds, the royal uncle looked back at the prince. "You heard the overwhelming odds, yet you still claim absolute confidence?" Vincent frantically tried to intervene. That mountain entrance is the ranger's primary lifeline. If we lose that choke point, it will spark a brutal, never-ending war of attrition, and our future subjugation missions will face devastating, absolute ruin. If even a single scratch falls upon your highness, all of Balakard will plunge into absolute, bloody chaos. The royal uncle simply shook his head, silencing Vincent's frantic protests. He turned to the main character and asked exactly what resources he required. The prince demanded elite guides and fresh gear for his personal guard. "Hand over your finest crossbows while you are at it." "Consider it done," the royal uncle agreed. Moments later, the assigned guides knelt before the main character. "Let us begin the hunt." One confused guide dared to ask, "Set out to where? You do not know? We are marching to slaughter an orc tribe. 20 hostiles await, potentially hiding elite warriors and dark shamans. But your highness, we were deployed strictly as your royal escorts. The 3rd Legion is here. Why risk us? Because you are sworn to follow and protect my life regardless. The 3rd Legion expects you today. Grab your combat gear right now, then report back to my immediate command." The 3 guides nodded in helpless surrender. These men were hand-picked royal elites, possessing genuinely impressive, battle-hardened combat skills. Yet, hiding within their elite ranks, one wildly suspicious shadow seemed completely out of place. The main character smirked. This bloody raid would be anything but boring. Soon, Vincent approached the main character, volunteering to guide them himself. "Your Highness, if this fails, the catastrophic fallout will shatter your imagination." The main character swore he would never fail. "You underestimate this." The two men clashed in a fierce stare-down. The invisible, explosive tension hanging between them grew dangerously thick. Without flinching, the main character silently activated his authority appraisal skill. Vincent and his guard's hidden stats materialized in midair. Reaching the rank of 3-chain knight so young was genuinely impressive, but looking at the squad behind him, only one possessed a true ranger's aura. The rest were merely disguised knights. So that was their dirty strategy. If this raid collapsed, they would abandon him to slaughter the beasts themselves. Seeing their trap, the main character signaled the immediate advance. Thus, the strike team marched toward the savage orc territory. Trudging through the snow, Vincent relentlessly nagged the main character without a single breath. "Conserve your stamina. Once exhaustion hits, your freezing limbs will lock up, and the battlefield will descend into absolute slaughter. Especially in this frozen hellscape of the Blade Mountains, constant vigilance is your only lifeline." A sharp headache pierced the main character's skull. How could this knight complain endlessly? Did his mouth ever dry? A fleeing rabbit caught his eye, while a soldier raised his spyglass in pure horror. A brutal squad of orcs invaded their sightline. The scout swiftly signs to the main character, warning him of an advancing orc squad. "How do we handle this?" he asks. Without hesitation, our protagonist raises one hand, commanding silent preparation. Soldiers instantly ready their heavy crossbows. The sharp, metallic clatter of loading weapons echoes, immediately alerting the monstrous beasts. At his signal, a devastating volley of arrows rains down, crippling the enemy vanguard. The surviving monsters unleash earth-shattering roars, filling the valley with pure bloodlust. The protagonist smoothly draws the shimmering blade from his waist, and instantly, he launches himself at a colossal beast, silencing its savage roar forever. A twisted, almost manic grin stretches across the young prince's face. He finally reclaims what he craved: thundering footsteps, deafening battle cries, and the thick stench of gore. This is the intoxicating aroma of warfare he has been desperately yearning for. Alvin frantically rushes forward, her voice trembling as she asks if he is injured. Before she can finish, the protagonist stops her. "Stay back, you will be dragged into this." Suddenly, an ancient violent memory crashes heavily into the main character's mind. A tragic tale tracing back countless years, maybe even centuries past. Back then, these creatures were not mindless monsters, but the continent's proudest absolute rulers. This tale is no myth, nor does it feature a hero. He was just a forgotten soul erased from history. A pathetic phantom entirely consumed by blazing hatred for the beasts. It remains the mournful elegy of a broken father fighting until complete exhaustion. He wandered the monster-ruled wastelands endlessly, driven solely by a thirst for enemy blood. Even after his internal mana core completely withered away, his relentless march never once ceased. Naturally, his mortal body deteriorated drastically. Meanwhile, I, existing as the cursed demonic blade in his grasp, pushed him to achieve his ultimate desire. I relentlessly devoured his life force. Ultimately, we massacred them all, mirroring the exact tragedy they caused him. This was the bloody requiem composed for his slaughtered family. Eventually, his fated, lifelong nemesis finally stepped onto the battlefield. Although his mind and flesh were pushed beyond their absolute limits, he channeled his very last ounce of strength into one final, devastating strike. However, reality lacks fairy tale miracles, and his attack failed. He was brutally crushed beneath the colossal tyrant's foot. Yet, even facing absolute death, he refused to yield. His final dying whispers faded into the ancient, forgotten winds. Thus, his tragic legacy concluded in total obscurity, remaining forever untold. Snapping back to reality, the protagonist realizes something shocking. Before he even noticed, severed monster corpses had completely piled around his boots. Meanwhile, his loyal knights are still struggling frantically to hold back the enemy's vicious counterattack. Witnessing their struggle, the prince tightens his grip on his blade. Though that ancient avenger's tale concluded, this bloody hymn of vengeance is far from over. Only after monstrous bodies form a towering mountain and thick crimson pools flood the earth does the very last beast finally collapse. With this, the violent symphony of revenge reaches its absolute conclusion. Simultaneously, Vincent violently shatters the enemy's war banner into pieces, using that definitive strike to loudly declare their absolute triumph. Ironically, that pitiful phantom's name was also Vincent. The protagonist never expected this noble heir, born to slaughter monsters, would share the exact same title as that ancient avenger. Centuries ago, desperate to completely eradicate the monstrous hordes, he had sacrificed his own soul. Suddenly, a forgotten oath resurfaces with crystal clarity within the main character's racing mind. Even if reincarnated into another lifetime, I will tread this exact bloody path. Thus, the brutal subjugation concludes, twisting the vengeance hymn into a solemn requiem. Gripping the shattered enemy flag, Vincent approaches the prince respectfully. "Please, accept this." Our protagonist frowns, entirely confused why he should take a ruined flag. Vincent quickly explains this sacred winter fortress tradition. The battlefield's fiercest warrior earns the absolute right to claim the enemy's standard. This is an irreplaceable, supreme honor, and your highness slaughtered the highest number of beasts today. Therefore, this trophy belongs solely to you. Suddenly, Alvin leads a heavily armored squad of knights forward. "We salute the unmatched bravery your highness unleashed upon the battlefield. Please allow us to offer our utmost reverence to our fearless prince." Hearing those passionate words, immense satisfaction floods the protagonist's heart. During his previous existence as a mere weapon, he had never once experienced such absolute reverence. Empowered, the prince proudly hoists the war banner high, roaring their subjugation victory. Instantly, dozens of loyal knights erupt into deafening, victorious cheers. "From today onward, I command this banner." Nearby, Vincent mutters softly, "I have some too." The protagonist freezes instantly, assuming he misheard. "You heard right. I possess enemy banners too, 16 of them." Hearing this, absolute realization strikes the main character. So, this young warrior perfectly mirrors that ancient phantom. The same exact name, the identical, relentless personality. This cannot be mere coincidence. A mysterious, fated thread must secretly bind their souls. Embracing destiny, our protagonist raises the glorious standard once again. So what if you have 16? As long as this one is mine, it is enough. After the celebration, the surviving group cremated the brave knights lost in battle. Truly, the heaviest sorrow in this world is the living bidding farewell to the dead. Everyone watched the somber scene from afar. Not a single soul remained unmoved. Vincent stood nearby, comforting the ranks. He reminded them these casualties were the absolute lowest they had ever suffered fighting the savage orcs. But Alvin felt the brutal reality. It was still deeply tragic. That is the true face of war. Only through future victories can we truly honor the fallen. I will personally console their restless spirits with a river of orc blood. That is the Balakard family's way. Winter Fortress's way. And my way, Vincent's way. Those fierce words drag the protagonist back into ancient memories. They do not merely share the same name. Even their post-battle speeches mirror each other perfectly. Could Vincent truly be that old man's reincarnation? The protagonist shook his head helplessly at the thought. Still, he did not remember deploying with this many troops. Vincent startled at those words and hurried to explain. A wandering ranger unit had coincidentally passed by and joined the fierce battle. That is far too much of a coincidence. Yes, suspiciously coincidental. What concerns me more is how the orc forces penetrated this deep without the rangers noticing. We must return immediately and report this critical situation. Soon, the weary group arrived back at Winter Fortress. The royal uncle had already been pacing anxiously outside the fortress gates for a very long time. Seeing the entire unit return safely, he finally let out a heavy breath of relief. The moment the protagonist spotted the royal uncle, he rushed over, proudly showing off the captured orc banner in his hands. Immediate voices of praise echoed around them. His Highness, the Prince, is absolutely amazing, though he is definitely bragging again. This is already the 11th time he has gloated on the journey back. Does he never tire of it? The protagonist would never tire of it, eager to flex just one more time. But the royal uncle was already deeply focused on Vincent's tactical report. Vincent detailed every suspicious anomaly to the royal uncle. Hearing the grim facts, the older man nodded gravely. I wanted to let you rest properly, but this matter is far too urgent. With those words, he signaled Vincent to follow him for a private war council. The two strode quickly into the heart of Winter Fortress, but Vincent paused as he passed the protagonist, confused as to why the prince had been staring holes into him this entire time. After a tense moment of silence, Vincent finally spoke. Your Highness has worked incredibly hard today. Please return and get some well-deserved rest. The protagonist never expected the sour-faced kid to say something so considerate. Was he just putting on an act? Alvin sensed genuine honesty. Perhaps Vincent was simply embarrassed about his shifting attitude. Just then, Adilia, who had stayed behind from the subjugation mission, dashed out from the fortress courtyard. Seeing your Highness safe brings me absolute relief. The protagonist's heart warmed instantly before he hoisted the battle banner yet again. Do you know what this is? Alvin groaned inwardly. Here we go again. Adilia, please do not answer him. But Adilia happily answered, kicking off yet another exhausting round of shameless bragging. Night soon fell. Vincent sought out the protagonist, announcing he would reorganize a specialized ranger unit to scout the perilous mountains again. We cannot confirm what deadly unknown factors lurk in those mountains. We are selecting only absolute elites capable of professional reconnaissance. This means your Highness need not participate personally. Those blunt words left the protagonist utterly speechless. I never said I was going, did I? You came all the way here just to say this? Vincent explained the royal uncle sent him. It seems the royal uncle desperately wants us to get along. After all, we practically count as brothers now. Realizing this, the protagonist nodded lightly. Understood, you may go. After Vincent exited, the prince sighed in utter helplessness. Getting along with him was not difficult, but thinking he might be the reincarnation of his old comrade from his past life as a sword made everything feel incredibly awkward. At that thought, the protagonist's gaze shifted back to the captured orc banner. In today's brutal battle, he truly had immersed himself far too deeply. For the very first time, he had completely recited an ancient hymn. These lingering memories do not fully belong to me yet, so, in the coming future, I may experience these overwhelming echoes again and again. I must make these foreign yet familiar powers completely mine. Just as I evolved that fierce hymn of vengeance into a soothing requiem, suddenly, a chilling evil aura pierced straight into the protagonist's senses. A strange bird landed by the window, tapping its beak against the glass, demanding entry. The protagonist's heart sank into absolute dread. He hesitated to open the window, already guessing who had sent this twisted little bird. But he let it inside anyway. A second later, the creature actually spoke. Do you like the gift I sent you? He frowned sharply, demanding to know exactly what twisted gift she meant. Then his eyes narrowed. The moment the bird landed, its claws dug straight into the captured orc banner. So it was you who lured the orc horde to the mountain's base. I merely hoped your highness would embrace a far greater challenge. Could it be your highness refuses to accept my sincere kindness? His frown deepened into a scowl of pure disgust. She dares to call this slaughter her kindness? Dozens of brave lives were lost because of her sick game. Yet she speaks with such arrogance. This twisted nature reminded him exactly why he absolutely loathed the elf race, but especially this maddening woman. Because elves were naturally obsessive, watching others suffer like sick voyeurs. And this woman was the absolute worst of them all. She showed zero remorse for the slaughtered rangers, lacking even a single trace of genuine grief. Boiling with absolute rage, he could no longer suppress his killing intent, and viciously cut her off. Enough of your nonsense. You are so terribly cold to me. But that is unrequited love. It always brings countless agonizing pains. I can only pray that one day, your highness will finally open your arms and embrace me. Where did this wretched elf learn such shameless lines? Even waiting 100 lifetimes, that day would never come. Just as he thought this, the bird suddenly fluttered right down to his ear. It whispered that deep within the mountains hid the exact power he currently needed. A terrifyingly ancient existence sleeps there. If you turn its legend into lyrics, I guarantee it will become the most exquisite and divine hymn. He was just about to demand what exactly lurked deep inside those mountains. But at that very moment, the cursed bird began to twist and bulge sickeningly. I know your highness still has countless questions, but this cute little vessel has completely run out of time. Until our paths cross again, highness. Before the final word faded, the bird violently exploded right before his eyes. Foul blood and shattered organs splattered all over his armor. That damned elf. She just had to disgust me at the very end. Just you wait. One day I will end your life. Why one day? Because right now, I still lack the strength to defeat her. It is also painfully obvious why she reached out just to drop this hint. She desperately needs me to forge new hymns. Since ancient times, elves were perfect listeners and chanters, but they could never become legendary storytellers themselves. So they fiercely longed to weave others' hymns into their own melodies, singing them loudly through deadly sword dances. She fed me this precious intelligence because she wants to use me to harvest a much deeper, completely legendary hymn. I hate dancing to her manipulative tune, but just this once, I will swallow my pride and cooperate. Early the next morning, he tracked down Vincent and directly interrogated him about those forbidden mountains. But Vincent's face fell, warning that absolutely no one who ventured deep into that hellish range had ever returned alive. The rangers did patrol the region often, knowing the outskirts like their own backyard. Yet even those hardened veterans only dared to skim the very edges. He knew perfectly well that Vincent had absolutely no reason to lie. Still, refusing to give up, he relentlessly pressed the man for more. He desperately needed just one single, useful clue. But Vincent could only shake his head in complete helplessness. Their sacred duty was to butcher the monsters rushing down from the peaks, not to blindly explore that cursed mountain range. If Vincent's warning was entirely true, it meant humanity was utterly blind to what lurked inside, and he found that completely unbelievable. Because in the past, power-hungry knights would scour the entire globe, turning over every stone just to seize a chance at the transcendent realm. Their manic exploration had been so incredibly thorough that the deep mysteries of this entire world were almost completely exhausted. This made it devastatingly hard for later generations to ever grasp the elusive transcendent realm again. Yet right here and now, this territory still preserved a true forbidden zone, heavily shrouded in deadly mystery. Coming to Balakard was undeniably the absolute best choice. Just as his blood boiled with excitement, Vincent issued a stern warning. "You had better not target those peaks." He simply smiled, assuring the man that he wasn't going in right now. Those words were not just to placate him, because he truly didn't intend to enter the mountains yet. Naturally, he still craved to know what monstrosity lurked up there. By the bird's cryptic description, it was clearly an existence of the legendary heroic rank. "I want to rush straight in, but now isn't the time. I desperately need more battles and victories, and Balakard is a glorious land of unending war. Coming here was undeniably the most brilliant decision of my entire life." However, he never expected the roaring flames of battle to spark so incredibly quickly. Not long after, he led Alvin to the towering wall where the royal uncle stood guard. Frowning, he demanded to know what was attacking this time. Without a word, the royal uncle simply raised his hand, pointing toward the terrifying chaos outside the city. Utterly confused, he looked up, only to see the elite mountain rangers retreating in absolute bloody panic. The protagonist's heart plunged. These rangers of Winter Fortress were all hardened, seasoned veterans, and for anything to push them to this absolute breaking point, the approaching monsters had to be terrifyingly powerful. Suddenly, the green-skinned nightmares emerged from the mist. Atop the wall, frantic soldiers screamed for their stranded comrades to sprint faster. They were just inches away from archer range, but the protagonist sensed a chilling trap, and the royal uncle gave a grim nod. Those wolf riders were merely toying with the rangers. They could easily catch them. Yet, after this relentless chase, the beasts showed zero signs of fatigue. Meanwhile, our human soldiers were gasping, completely drained of energy. Suddenly, one desperately exhausted ranger stopped dead in his tracks. In a flash, he spun around, fiercely facing the towering wolf rider head-on. "You damned greenskin bastards, you face a ranger of Hollowbad." But mid-sentence, the monstrous wolf clamped its jaws, swallowing him whole. In that gruesome instant, the chaotic, screaming fortress wall plunged into a horrifying dead silence. Soldiers' eyes burned red with unshed tears. Outside the towering walls, the remaining survivors furiously gritted their teeth, gripped their shattered swords, and charged at the monstrous wolf riders like absolute madmen, watching their blood bloom like tragic red flowers across the pristine snow, while the deafening, excited howls of murderous orcs echoed in his ears. Suppressing his blazing fury, the protagonist roughly shoved Vincent completely out of his path. Vincent froze in sheer confusion. The protagonist's voice cut through the air, icy cold. "They are baiting us out of the safe city. This is a deliberate, bloody challenge to a duel. Now, I finally know what ancient nightmare slumbers in those mountains. These orcs have been chanting one single phrase. I will wage a battle of honor, and reclaim my legion's glory for the great king." That is what they are screaming at the top of their lungs this whole time,